Hello.
Bam!
So we really have a bigger viewership than normal.
Back once again.
Apparently we do.
We have more viewers than before. Guys,
Mo's got the dope beer.
What does that say about you guys on Thursday nights? You really have nothing better to do.
Hey, it's Thursday. It's Thursday afternoon for me, so it's not a big deal.
No, we're all in Europe here. That's the main thing.
Back once again for the Renegade Master.
What are you drinking, Ali? What's in there?
He's got a
I
rim
was
on
hoping it would say Renegade Master, but it says it's Mosaic. This is part of a package that I got from Brian at Stillwater Artisanal. Thank you, Brian, for always sending me the goods. And this is a DDH India Pale Ale brewed with Motueka and Mosaic. David,
good hops.
What is that?
Those are the types of hops. Very, very good. Mosaic are like my favorite types of hops.
Huh, I'm learning something new every day.
This is one of the most delicious beers I've ever had, and it's 7%.
Ali, what exactly is it? What does it say on the? What is it?
It's IPA.
It's
IPA.
It doesn't. It's a pale ale. It's not an IPA.
Oh, pale. Oh, okay.
Pale ale. Yeah.
But what kind? Is it in New England pale ale?
Motueka and Mosaic.
I think it's just a regular, real pale.
Yeah.
Pale ales are great. If you get the right pale ale, what percentage does it have?
7%.
That's pretty. I'm going to catch up with this by having my wine, which is local wine. Local, very local wine. And today, for me, it's DJs and wine. I don't know why. I just had friends over. We had just some wine together, so I just continue like this.
Yeah. And Mo, what do you think of it, Mo? I saw his reaction, so I'm assuming he liked it. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, you're muted, Mo.
Oh.
Maybe we should give Mo that nickname.
I shouldn't be muted.
Muted Mo.
Muted Mo.
Actually, I'm getting sounded. You guys can't hear me?
You're quiet today, Mo.
Really far away.
This is better.
Like far away.
Better, yeah.
Okay, sorry. No, this is
a little distorted now, dude.
Oh, is this better now?
I don't know.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Trapezus Rochefort Belgian beer. It's pretty good. It's kind of sweet. It's got a bit of a kind of a caramel aftertaste to it in a way.
Yep. It's a Trappist style beer, which means it's like brewed by monks.
Whoa.
Nice.
Hey.
Piston beer.
So there's a sake that's brewed by monks as well.
Really?
Yeah, the name of that kind of sake is slipping my mind right now. But
is that a normal thing that monks brew sake, or not really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It dates back, obviously, hundreds of years. And God, the name will come to me at some point. Gosh.
Interesting.
Nice.
Yeah. Chris, you're in a jolly mood right now, right? Because you're happy you made it back from, your crazy off the beaten path days.
I don't know. Did you see my video from up there? That was before I realized that I had not really a clue where I was. It was groundbreaking day. Maybe for some people that day comes when they're like 15 or 16, but I took a little longer. I had my first solo skin up the mountain and basically solo ski down the mountain. But there was literally no one around, like absolutely no one. And then I was sitting up on the mountain, and I did an Instagram story, and I just did a 360, which was blue sky. It was absolutely beautiful. It was so quiet up there. And what struck me the most, because I'm here, obviously near Lake Léman, Lake Geneva, and we all fly a lot, so we know that this area, this is kind of like the corridor of all flights that come north to south and south to north, like everything that flies from London to Barcelona, everything that flies from anywhere, major hub in Europe, Northern Europe, Frankfurt, to go to Southern Europe, like I think even Rome or Barcelona, Madrid, all flies through this corridor.
Yeah.
And I was up there looking at the sky, and there was like, for at least an hour I was sitting there, there was absolutely not one plane passing by. Wow. It was absolutely insane. It was crazy.
That you were, or was it like liberating that
it was interesting because you know this is going to be done by next year again, because usually you see a lot of planes going over here, because this is like every time I'm flying to Barcelona, I actually see this place from when I look outside. And you see that you fly right over the Mont Blanc. You know the route, guys. And there was literally no plane up in the air, and it's like it's that like medieval times. It's just like this is like 1700 something, 1800 something. Like no planes in the sky. It was great. Well, and then I went off, and then I realized that I wasn't really sure where exactly I was. And I really have to learn the maps before I go up and do those things. But I luckily have some good friends, thanks Jesse and Josh, who I was able to call up and give them my location pin, and they were looking online where I was, and they were able to tell me if I go left or right, because there's some cliffs somewhere where you shouldn't go, maybe.
So you didn't go up, you didn't come down the same way you went up.
No, I went up one side, and I went down. I went this way before with other friends, but I couldn't. Every time up there's things look different. The snow is different. You see different things, and I couldn't get really lost. I knew this. It's not like that I'm completely doing dangerous shit. But I could have. The worst case scenario would have been I end up at a place where I take off my skis and have to walk through like woods for an hour to get out.
Well, you have to be careful. There's rivers as well underneath you and all that kind of stuff. Especially
but it's pretty consolidated. The snow right now here is, and the aspects where I was, there's absolutely no avalanche danger. Although Ali constantly sends me these videos with people getting like just barely escaping avalanches, and I was wondering why he does that.
But you'll be staying there all year, right? Maybe, so you're going to be able to go up to. It's always good if you can walk and go and see where you ski in the summer.
So nice.
You can hike as well, because then you really get to see the mountains as well.
I actually last week extended my rental contract for this place, so I'm going to stay here longer. I didn't see a point of going back to Frankfurt, really.
You should do like a circle event from the slopes.
Yeah, actually, there's a plan with Red Bull in March that I'm going to do a DJ gig up at Rosa Blanche, which is another mountain over there. We fly there with a helicopter. I do the gig, and then we ski down.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a good plan.
For other skiers, or it's just
me and a guide.
Okay.
Why don't you do it while you're skiing, like sort of Richie in the water? You could just have a couple of tracks.
Have a thing like
controllers.
Hang it in front of me, right?
Yeah. Who's that guy that carries his
the guy
DJ?
that runs around? Yeah.
He DJs.
No, I should do that. And I actually got first time this year, because usually when you ski, it's funny. And Ali, you probably most of all will not understand this. With skiing clothes, you'd usually wear like colorful clothes, yeah.
Yeah.
And this time, I actually got an all black techno outfit. So
wow.
Yeah.
So you're not. I guess you shouldn't wear all white.
I was only saying, Ali, you don't understand that me not wearing black of all people. Like
I know you gotta, because they gotta identify your body somehow.
But now they have to identify me. But this is the completely black dude. This is the techno guy.
Yeah, it's
so cheers to that.
So you're known as that. So you're that DJ guy who skis from the village. That's what you're. Yeah.
Yep.
You're the techno guy
in the village.
That's what I'm going for in my village. I'm already like waving to my neighbors here, and some of them already kind of like. I have an electrician as a neighbor. He was like, "I'm listening to techno. I know you."
You should have. It'd be funny to do a DJs and Beers with like your neighbors, your friends in the background, just sipping beer behind you while we're.
And my friends were just here, but they left in time before the show.
It'll be like MTV's TRL or something.
Yeah,
an audience with something.
Yeah,
but if I can, how do you say that in English? If I can pitch something? No.
Yeah.
What? If I do some advertisement for Saturday, I'm planning a live stream on Saturday again.
Wow.
And from here, so do my first live stream
outside.
What?
You gonna do it outside in the snow?
No, I'm going to do it from here. It's like this is my new little rave cave here.
Nice.
This is really, actually, it's a really cool place. I think you can't see the whole thing. But,
the next question,
I'm going to try to do a stream on Saturday night from here, sitting again, because I was standing up at some point when I did my DJ booth and now I'm going to be sitting again. Like, you guys ever like DJ? I mean, Ali, you did. I saw you in the dub streams sitting down. Like, do you ever DJ sitting down? It's an interesting experience, I find.
It's fun, actually.
I did it once. I played opening to closing at Output, and I think I twisted my ankle or something, and I sat down the whole set. David, you did that when you broke your leg as well, didn't you?
So
Right.
the first gig I had going back, it was seated because I was still in the cast. And then when I had my boot, I remember I played a gig in like Tampa in Florida, and they brought me a chair, but like halfway through the set, I was like, I can't sit down. I need to stand. It feels too weird.
Oh,
I remember years ago when I played Time Warp in Buenos Aires, the first Time Warp. I went to say hello to Luciano, and he'd broken his leg or foot, ankle, something, skiing. And they had a chair there, like a stool. And I think he was sat there for the start of his set, but he kept getting up because it was hard for him to, he always does the little side to side kind of dance, the Luciano shuffle. And he kept looking at me like he was clearly in pain, but he couldn't help it because, you got, when you're DJing in front of that kind of an audience, you want to get up no matter what kind of pain you're in.
You can sit down doing a stream. That's kind of feels funny. It feels like you're in a laboratory and you're doing your like little.
But hey, Chris, are you gonna use the CDJs? Is it the first time?
No, I'm gonna play with my Tractor setup. The CDJ setup with the fancy Pioneer mix and everything is just there to test it out. Testing, learning. You always want to learn new things, right?
You're still not making the move.
I'm gonna replace that with my Tractor setup. I'm gonna include, I think, the 909.
It's trying to start controversy.
What?
Anytime I post a video, it could be like, I don't know, certain contexts, where I'm playing like, and I don't have like enough room to have my full setup. Okay, maybe I'll play on the CDJ or use the sound card in a Pioneer mixer, and I get all these comments like, "What? You moved to the CDJ or the Pioneer mixer? What's going on?" I'm like, "Fuck."
But do you know how to play with the CDJ, Ali?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not confident, but it just takes practice. It's pretty easy, especially with the new CDJ 3000. It's the features are incredible.
But don't you feel like if switching equipment DJing is the same as if like you were just getting new gear? Like, why is it such a big deal to some people?
I mean, for me personally, because I have these moments where, like in the middle of a set, I think of something classic to play, and if I didn't put that on the USB stick,
right,
or if I'm playing, there's a lot of songs that have like a long ambient intro or something like that. It's very hard to play those on a CDJ.
That's simply a comfort level thing too. I mean, if you're used to having tools at your disposal that you're used to manipulate music in the way that you're used to doing it, and then you switch gear in the middle of a set, you have to rearrange the way your brain kind of functions in terms of what you can go to and do and what you can't. So
and like definitely. A 15-inch laptop screen is much smaller than like 4 CDJs.
But I think
I was going to say I doubt there'll be many clubs though that'll have the V10 mix because it's so big.
It's
and
huge.
I don't think there's many. I know I've heard that there's only 10 in Germany. So these units. So,
but I think David, you were more pointing out like why are people so obsessed with what equipment you're using? I think that is because people kind of like identify yourself with a certain equipment that you're using, that you stand for that you believe in this. And once you change that setup, they kind of like, why isn't he believing in this anymore? What's going on?
Like I would like, it would be weird to see you at a gig playing on CDJs, honestly, because I've seen you play on laptops for so long. And if I see you up there, like if you were queuing a CD, like I'd be like, what the hell? It would look so weird.
Well, then prepare.
Same thing with Mo. Like if I were to see Mo queuing up some CDJs, it would just feel weird. Like what the
hell? I know what you mean.
Mo, you play with a laptop?
Yeah, I play with Tractor.
Ah.
Yeah.
Day one, I think.
Since the very beginning of Tractor, just like you guys.
Just like me as well, yeah. But Matt, you're playing with CDJs for a long time, right?
Yeah, from the start, pretty much. I mean, just purely from the fact that I was losing my records so often, losing them, and it was just horrendous. So
how many records did you lose in your life?
Well, no, I mean, I think there was one summer, I think it was 2007, when I lost my records, the box maybe 5 or 6 times. And this was once was going to the States, going to Mutex straight from Panorama Bar. And I was then going on tour for a week. And I'd stuffed the CD wallet in the front of the Rimowa record box when I left Panorama Bar. And then I didn't see it for another 10 days. And I had nothing on me. So
yeah.
That moment, that summer, I realized that this is it. And also because I mean, it's one of those things. I really cherish the records I have, and I was always a little bit like, I don't want to take this record out. It's too
precious.
Too precious. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and this was maybe even now, like even with Discogs, I'd still be even more cautious about taking records. I mean, I played at Glastonbury once, and I was playing disco, so I had loads of rare records. And had the record box open, and someone came in from behind the tent into the DJ booth from the mud and walked on top of my records with their boot and scraped it that way.
Yeah.
So like literally they filled all my records. Yeah.
It's funny. I think I just skipped CDJs in general because when I was playing records and playing vinyl, when CDs first got introduced, there was almost this kind of prejudice feeling against them. Like, everybody was kind of super snobby about playing with CDs. And then Final Scratch had come out, and I thought that was a perfect opportunity for me to still be able to use turntables and then even play my own tracks that were not pressed or cut on a dub plate or something. And I went straight from turntables to just playing all on Final Scratch. And then as turntables began to degrade and become less reliant in the club, they just kind of phased out, and I just went straight to my computer. So I completely just skipped the whole evolution of CDJs from its beginning.
Yeah. But I mean, I do one thing I do like with the new record box and CDJs is the fact that you can organize your music on your phone, and then you just literally plug your phone into the CDJ, which cuts out. There's loads of times now I never use my laptop, so I don't even have to get it out.
But so that means you have to load a ton of music on your phone.
You go off the cloud through record box.
Okay, I've never done that.
So, but you can then just put it on your phone and then plug your phone in, and so you'll have that extra screen, so which will be your little mini box which you'll have in front of you. So,
cool. Yeah, I mean, we talked about this on last week's show, where like you have one too many traumatic instances of losing your favorite vinyl records, and that's usually the catalyst.
But were you guys aware? Were you guys aware of the health hazard of vinyl?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
or being hit by one. I think
you being hit by one. You can be.
Didn't Dave Clark throw one into the crowd once?
Someone got hurt really bad because I think it was somebody broke a record. DJ broke a record and flung it, and it hit some girl or guy.
Yeah.
It's extremely dangerous material.
No, I think DJs are used to having far more worse health hazards around them than records. That's for sure. I think the records are the least of their concern. I mean, with all the shit they stuff in their nose, who gives a shit what records they're playing?
Flying on airplanes all the time.
Exactly. Carbon footprint.
Yeah.
I know, but still, vinyl has quite a like. They somehow there's like chemicals. They emit a certain kind of chemical that's really, really unhealthy for your lungs.
Yeah.
Well, how come
you're talking about the pressing process or just DJing?
No, the listening process. There's YouTube videos. I'm going to share them with you guys that I watched last week, where people do experiments with like. Some sort of instruments that measure the toxicity in the air, and they just opened brand new vinyls, put it on top, and then the machine started to beep. It's like it's pretty hazardous, actually.
Is it worse than COVID?
Maybe over the years, all in all, who knows? There's going to be. I mean, and besides that, vinyl is really, really bad for the environment too. Yeah. So it's actually not a really great medium to be honest.
Like a
It's a
vinyl
medium of the past. Huh?
We need like a vinyl listening vaccine.
So does it mean just having a room full of records means that there's like toxic air?
I'll send you the video and you
Wow.
David, I'll send you the video and you're gonna get all your vinyls outside in the garage.
Oh my god.
But did you see Richie's I don't know how many posts ago where he was introducing the vinyl edition of his new single, Time Warps, or I can't remember.
Time Warp, yeah.
Yeah, and he talked about how environmentally unfriendly vinyl manufacturing in general is, and how he was
while promoting his vinyl.
Well, no, I don't remember the post right now, but he did it in a sustainable way, I guess.
Explaining he did it in a sustainable way.
Green way. I don't know. People can look it up.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, though, I think with Brexit and everything that's been happening over the last year with COVID, I don't think there's going to be much left of the vinyl sort of left in our industry anyway. Damn. It's just it's going, and it's good. As Chris said, it's not healthy. It's not good for the environment.
Not good,
the pressing process. The pressing process is definitely toxic, though. I mean, I had the opportunity to work in a record pressing plant. A buddy of mine opened up his own, and he used to give me discounts if I actually went in there and just did the labor and pressed them myself, which for me was just an experience to just try, and I enjoyed it. But the chemicals and the smells that come out of melting the pellets and actually putting them in the box, it's terrible. You just inhale that shit all fucking day.
It is really a medium of the past. But I mean, if you look at it in a straight way, I don't want to get a new vinyl conversation going, but if you look at it, it's like really a medium of the past. And if we celebrate vinyl only DJs, we're actually celebrating someone who's not willing to move on, to something new.
Chris, maybe we should invite a vinyl only DJ or someone who's actually
Matt, you just stole my segue, Matt. I just wanted to get Eric in to discuss with us what he thinks about vinyl.
Yeah, you're not a real DJ if you're not playing vinyl, right, guys?
Eric, what do you say?
No.
Why don't we bring in Eric, aka DJ Bone?
Yo,
what up?
Live from Amsterdam.
Welcome
to weigh in on this subject.
First of all,
what's up, Eric?
Cheers.
Good to see you.
Oh, cheers.
I got a nice Dutch brew, a Pilsner.
Nice.
What's it called?
Jan.
Nice. All right.
It's coming in at 5.1%.
Nice.
And since that's not strong enough, I brought this for backup.
Hennessy.
I had the hand dog.
I see you're coming in well prepared.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's just talk about vinyl.
Were you paying attention to our conversation about how I guess vinyl is very toxic?
Oh, vinyl is killing the planet, and everyone's inhaling COVID vinyl. And yeah, I heard Chris.
I mean, I knew the process was bad, but
well, the process is bad. Have you been inside a pressing plant, the vinyl pressing plant?
I've never been. No,
it's bad. But honestly,
dead animals hanging around everywhere.
I have tons of vinyl. I have, probably 10,000 records. But like he was telling you, David, I actually keep it all in the garage. Yeah, I built racks in the garage for the vinyl. So it's like a little store in there. But yeah, I keep it outside.
Okay.
Because it is. Because I didn't know if it's the actual vinyl. Sometimes I would think it's the plastic that they shrink wrap it in or the actual cover, but everything has its own unique smell, but it's chemical.
Yeah.
So that there's something that's unhealthy in there for you.
So you were aware of this, Eric, right?
But I didn't know about, as far as Chris is saying, where as soon as you play a record, this green smoke comes out and it'll kill you.
It's literally black smoke. It's the black smoke from Lost. You remember that? You remember the black smoke from Lost? That's exactly what comes out of it.
Hold on. For those, the smoke is from the fire from my records, man.
Yeah.
It's from that 81, 82.
Yeah.
It seems that apparently vinyl has lead in it.
Wow.
And that's what makes it toxic.
Well, if you guys are interested, I'm just saying, like, there's a YouTuber called I think Mo, you know him. It's Ben Jordan, Ben with 2N.
He's an old friend of mine.
Right. He has a YouTube channel, and he has a very good video about the vinyl stuff.
Well, post that for everybody, Chris.
Check that out. I'm gonna post that now on my Twitter.
Ben is actually a very prolific IDM producer. He used to go under the name Flashbulb.
Oh, really?
And he made a ton of records in the early 2000s.
Wow. Eric, music for all of us, I think, is a huge memory trigger of like a specific time and a specific place.
Yeah.
Going way back, like when I say the words Music Institute, what do you remember as far as your earliest musical memory?
Honestly,
or it could be an experience that you have that kind of put you on the path that you're on today.
that was the ultimate catalyst, honestly, for me. It was a club in Detroit that it was like the anti-club club. Yeah. So basically it opened at midnight or 2. Basically it'll open at 2 and would stay open until the sun comes up. And there's no alcohol served. There were no lights. There was basically a dark room with a strobe light, 1 or 2 strobes, no windows. So the focus was completely on the music. The DJ was separate from the crowd. It was up and away. So you weren't staring at the DJ and watching what they were doing. And you would go in and you didn't care about what somebody was wearing, what race they were, gender. It was just, you go in, you feel your way around, find a spot, and you dance.
Yeah.
And you would hear these tracks. And it got to me because every week that I would go, I was waiting to hear something that was fantastic that I already heard. But also, it put me in that state of mind of wanting to hear something new and something I never heard before, but that was still just as amazing as the classic stuff I was hearing. Like you hear Voodoo Ray for the first time. It just blew my mind. I didn't know what to do or what to, I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And it was fantastic because every week it was that. It was new shit. And it was the hottest shit that you could imagine. And it was so foreign because you were used to everything but electronic music in that form.
Yeah.
I had listened to Depeche Mode, The New Order, and Pet Shop Boys and everything like that. But to hear this funkier, dirtier, sexier kind of music, it was out of this world, man. It was out of this world. So it put me in the mindset from that first moment up until right now. I've always felt like I need to bring the party to a level where people aren't just enjoying what's happening. I want them to anticipate, what is Bone gonna do next? What the fuck what can he do now? That's what I want, that level. So they're kind of on the edge of their seat, like when you go to a movie and you can kind of predict the plot. But when there's something where it gives you a twist and you're like, holy shit, and then another one. So now you're on the edge of your seat and you're like, what is going to happen next? Because they just blew my mind, 4 times. That's what I want my set to be.
I mean, obviously these days DJs have become like celebrities. So the focus of everyone's attention in a nightclub is on the DJ, and often
only those who do talk shows.
I mean, like, like the promoters and the club owners, they, over the years, everything has evolved to where they're putting the DJs sort of on a pedestal and forcing the crowd to look at the DJ, face the DJ. And do you think like we could ever get back to that original feeling? I mean, it's impossible to turn back the clock, so to speak. In terms of how everything has evolved, but do you think we could capture that original feeling that you just described?
I think so. I think because we're the teachers, basically. And if the class will pay attention enough, or if enough teachers will step up and say, okay, we need to try and move it in this direction. Like if all of us here said, you know what, I want a third of my gigs, I'm going to try and play where they can't even see me. or put me in such an obscure place where it's difficult for them to see me. So now they're almost forced, just like the Music Institute used to do. It forced you to, it took away all your other senses, and all you had left was being able to hear what was going on. I think it could go back to that, especially now because everything's been shut down.
Yeah.
It's the perfect time to try something like that. You know, I mean, I don't know how well it would be received because people have been so conditioned to watch the DJ. That's my biggest conundrum, is that the way I play, people want to watch me.
Yeah.
But I'm not necessarily trying to get them to watch me. I want them to hear me.
Yeah.
You know, I'd rather they hear what I do and then kind of go, oh shit, did you hear that? And have to look at me like, wow, did you just really do that? As opposed to watching and then they see my hand move and I didn't even do anything. They're like, oh, look there. Did you see that? Because they're not understanding. Yeah. I've seen that so many times. But I'll tell you a short story. I played Warehouse Project. And for some reason, the lineup was kind of weird. So they had Peggy Goo, then me, and then Dennis Solta. Why? I have no idea. But so I'm playing, and Dennis Solta's about to come on after me. And this is how people just don't pay attention. So I'm playing his records, and then, and by the way, I play digital too. So it's, you know, I don't carry vinyl much anymore, to tell the truth, you know, not much anymore. But so I'm playing, and these guys go in front of Dennis Solta, and they're like, oh, Dennis, man, you're killing it, man, you're killing it. And he just looks at him, and he's shaking his head, and he just points, and he goes, that's Bone still playing right there. Because, you know, they had a double setup. And they were like,
yeah.
Oh, okay. But, you know, this just goes to show that people don't really, they get conditioned to this way of
sensationalism.
Yeah. Or it could be the drug.
It could be the vinyl. If somebody's got vinyl and they're waving it around, somebody's going to get sick or high.
But yourself, I mean, you yourself, you're such a physical DJ when you play. And I think even anyone who grows up with the idea of turntablism, who wouldn't want to watch you play? I mean, just the way you work the decks. I mean, you know, it's truly a fascinating thing to watch. It's magic happening. And for anybody who's a DJ or an aspiring DJ, you know, and you're into the craft, you're into the art form, and you want to be inspired by what someone like you does.
I'll
you know
talk to that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because what you do is an art form. What you do with vinyl is an art form that you have developed in your whole life, and that is an art in itself.
I think that it used to be just a Detroit thing for me, but once I started to travel, it became more of a techno thing, where I could appreciate, because people from Detroit are really standoffish. You know, they used to be, and we were really like closed off from the rest of the world. So they would say something like, yeah, that Daft Punk. And we would look at, you know, somebody like Moody Man or something. He'd be like, who's Daft Punk? You know, I remember Mike Banks telling a story about how Aphex Twin came to Submerge and was knocking on the door. And Mike looked and thought he was a homeless guy. he goes, we ain't got nothing for you here, man. Because Mike would give out like toiletries and stuff for the homeless. And he told him, he's like, man, I ain't got nothing for you today. And he's like, no, I want to come to the shop to Submerge. And he was like, oh, but it's closed. And he said, well, I'm from England. And he said, okay, what's your name? And he says, I'm Aphex Twin. And Mike goes, Aphex Twins? And he said, yeah, I make techno. And Mike's like, do you? That's Detroit in a nutshell, you know? So when we go from that to being able to travel, and now you kind of take it in, so I can appreciate people who don't play vinyl. I can appreciate other styles. I can appreciate, you know, even on a personal level, someone who might play a music that I hate with, you know, deep down to my core, but they're such a nice person.
Yeah.
That when I see them and they're like, hey, Bone, how you doing? And I'm like, you know, oh, fuck it. You know, you got, what are you going to do? I won't take a selfie with them. But he's like, yeah, let's get a selfie. I'm like, you know, I can't do that, bro. And he's like, oh, yeah, you're right. But yeah, it opens up a whole new world, you know, and I think that the individual styles, like, that's why I love to watch other DJs. To this day, I still go out of my way to watch other DJs. because I really love to see your level of concentration.
Yeah.
And you're the magic you work with the crowd. And when somebody has such a unique style, it's exciting for me. It's really exciting.
Do you think DJs, we as a community, do you think we've always been narcissists and we just were waiting for our time in the spotlight or to be put on this pedestal, or did it kind of just evolve as dance music culture evolved?
I think it evolved, and I think there were narcissists there, of course, especially a lot of Detroit guys, but
some more than others.
See, and there was a majority of Detroit guys who would don't want anything to do with anybody. They'd rather be faceless, nameless, just
like Mike,
like Omar S, like Moody Man for the most part. As much as he promotes his shit, you would never know because he promotes it in such an underground way that you would never know he has a collaboration with Stussy, he has a collaboration with Carhartt, he has this, he has that. But I think that there were a few narcissists there at the big, to start with. And of course it brought them to that point of like, finally they recognized me. But as electronic music got bigger, I think it became a narcissist magnet.
Yeah. But aren't we all a little narcissistic in a way?
Yeah.
To be able to DJ?
What'd you say?
Aren't we all a little narcissistic in a way? That's why we're DJs as well, because
I don't know
your thing. You want to convince people about your idea of music.
I guess you're right though, because even if it's not, when I think of narcissism, I always think of look at me. But I guess we do have the listen to me aspect of it as well. Like, here, you need to hear me. You need to hear this, So it has to creep in there, whether you like it or not. But if I think of somebody like Stingray, I don't think of a narcissist. You know what I mean? Yeah. The guy is sweating his ass off in a balaclava, for God's sake. So
I think we're going to have him on the show so we can ask him why he wears that.
At the same time, I think there's varying levels of narcissism as well, and of course, I think by definition, you're talking about somebody who only thinks about themselves, who's always constantly about me. But there are so many people in our industry, DJs, who are more than just about me, who contribute to the community, who give back to support, up and coming artists. There's nothing wrong with being confident. That shouldn't be mistaken with being narcissistic all the time as well.
Yeah. That's true. I don't feel I'm narcissistic. I feel like I live up to the standard I set for myself. And I set a high bar. Put it this way, I could go somewhere and play a set and people can come up and tell me it was amazing. And if I know it wasn't, I'm not going to hear them and be convinced that it was a great set.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's like if you're a chef and you don't do your best when you prepare that meal, and they say, "Oh, it tasted amazing." You don't have to tell them, "Nah, it wasn't amazing." But you have to, deep down, you have to not fall into that. Well, I didn't think I did a great job, but maybe it is amazing. That's when I think the narcissism starts to kick in.
I think you're speaking a lot of truth there. This is very much the threshold where narcissism sets in when somebody else tells you you were great, but you don't believe yourself you weren't great. But in that moment, you're like, oh, me, yeah, of course I was great.
Exactly.
And then you fell into the trap of having a big fat ass ego.
That's it. Yeah. Because now you're believing the hype.
Yeah.
You're actually reading the headlines and going, damn, I am the shit. And that's when you are most prone to have your biggest fall, So once you start believing that shit and you're not hard on yourself and you're not valuing your art and the way you present it and taking time, and because it takes a lot. As much as DJs are superstars, the actual work that goes into it, whether you're preparing your set or listening, the time you take to listen to promos alone should be enough for a gold medal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Especially these days.
And I'm one of those guys who I don't care if it's Joe Schmo or if it's, the number one act out. I listen to everything that's sent to me. I have to
maybe a quick question to all of us here, or all of you. Like, when do you ever feel like you've listened to enough promos?
You get ear fatigue, and that's a very real thing with me. Like after a while, it's a combination of your ears just being tired of having sound pumped into it, but like you start questioning your own ability to detect what you like and what you don't. You can't tell anymore, and everything sounds like shit.
Yeah.
So
that's when you take a break.
When I
right?
know I can take a break.
Yeah.
It's usually after 2 tracks.
Let's be fair. 2 EPs.
But I mean, when I go through promos, I skip through the tracks so fast because like usually for me, I know something, I'll like it as soon as I hear that one loop where I'm just like, yeah, this is something I'll like.
Yeah.
But like, do you guys actually listen to the songs like all the way through?
Yeah, I mean, we all skip through, and then if it's interesting, we listen to the whole thing because they would take forever.
I think you know within a few seconds, don't you? You know.
Same.
I hate to judge I hate to judge a book by a cover, but sometimes you can tell whether or not you're going to like a record just by the artwork. You just see something horrible, and you're just like, "Fuck this!"
There's definitely a connection.
Delete.
I would even say that 50% of the music that I play new, I've never completely heard fully the track.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You hear that part that you like. You're like, this is the part.
Yeah.
You know? And like same with like when I used to go record shopping back in the days. You would just skip through and just be like, all right, that's the one. Okay, cool, boom, boom.
That's it.
Just, like, jump through
my method was I would start from the beginning and I would let it play. And once I got bored, I picked the needle up.
Mm-hmm.
So if I get bored, I pick it up and move it ahead. And I move it ahead twice. If it doesn't catch me by then, next.
Yeah,
that's it.
That is a really good tip. Thank you.
The thing about vinyl I used to like though was the decision making of there's one hot track on this EP.
Yeah.
Is it worth my $11 import versus this one that has 3 hot tracks?
Yeah.
You have to decide.
Is it worth the space in your case? Right?
Oh,
your case,
that's valuable. That's valuable. Ask Richie about his slip disc from carrying vinyl bags back in the day.
Wow.
And
you don't want to overload your shit. Back in the day, it was valuable. That was prime real estate.
Yeah. I know Rich is very much like the kind of guy that before a big set like Time Warp or something like that, he'll listen to like 1,000 tracks, but only skipping quickly through them. And so he's hearing it for the first time, but he trusts his instincts and his taste in music enough to know that, generally speaking, the tracks are going to be bombs. Every once in a while, something will have a really weird breakdown. And they'll be like, fuck, I got to edit that out or never play it again,
Yeah. Yep.
But
that happens.
Yeah. Wow.
But
isn't it easier now with wavelengths so you can see almost like, oh, that part's going to be tricky.
Long break.
So how did you tell everyone how you came up with the name DJ Bone? I'm sure I asked you this before.
Yeah.
Probably drunk on sake, and I don't remember.
I haven't heard the answer yet.
Oh, it's a nickname from long ago. It was kind of a double-edged sword because my sister is 3 years older than me, and all her friends used to hang out at our house, and all my friends thought that I was the man. They were like, "Yeah, are you boning now? Are you boning now?" But that was just like something they would say. But the nickname Bone was almost short for bonus. Because when I would play basketball back in the day,
boner.
Bonus. Wait,
sorry,
no.
I misheard.
I could jump to the moon. So I'm 5'10", and everybody else on the court's like 6'2" and taller. So we go to the park to play, and everybody's looking at me like, "Oh, I'll check the little fella," But then when we get going, this guy's trying to drive to the hoop and dunk, and I go up and up and up, and I block the shot, and I throw the ball into the grass. Everybody's like, it's one thing to get blocked by somebody who's tall, but when somebody short blocks your shot, it's an event. It's a fucking event, especially me, because I wouldn't just go up and block it. I would rear back and I would smack the shit out of that ball just to make a point. So it's going up and it would just go this way. So everybody in the court's like, damn, oh. So now somebody's getting clowned. So they started calling me Bonus, and my friends would call me Bone for short.
Oh, wow.
But that's the gist of the two areas of where it came from. And I just stuck with that. Because then my family started calling me that, and like, Bone, Bone, Bone.
So when you were how old when you were going to the music institute? I read you were like 16, 17.
Yeah, I was 17.
Quite young. And
I had to sneak in.
Sorry?
I had to sneak in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how did you get in? But also, like, you know, did you have other interests besides music that you were pursuing, or that you were, you know, wanted to go in that direction? And then once you entered the doors of the Music Institute and you were, I guess you were going week after week, it triggered something else in you, and you decided to put all those plans aside and go in this completely separate direction. Like,
that's basically what happened. My first love was basketball. I mean, I loved architecture. I was going to school for architecture, and I was lucky enough to get into a high school in Detroit. That's a college prep school. It's a public school, but you had to take, it was the only public school in the city where you had to take a test to get in. It's called Cass Technical. Wow. And we've graduated people like Aaliyah, Big Sean. You know, there's been a bunch of people who act and dance and sing who come from Cass. And I was really focused on architecture, you know. Long it takes before you can actually make a decent living with architecture, because you have to work for a firm, and then if you don't have your own or a private firm, then you're going to have to do this. So it was going to be like 8 years before, and you're making 30 grand, you know, for 8 years after you spent all this money on college, you know, and everything. So I love playing basketball. All my friends, all my family, they seriously thought I was going to play for the Detroit Pistons. Even when we went back to Detroit, and An met some of my best friends and their parents, and they were like, I still can't believe he's DJing. You know, like it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like, man, we seriously, we were waiting, man, courtside seats. We thought he was going to be playing for the Pistons. But once I went to the MI, it completely changed me. It did. Between that, there was like maybe 4 things. It was the MI, Electrifying Mojo, the way he was a DJ, but it wasn't about mixing. It was about the selection and about introducing new things to a demographic that didn't necessarily, you didn't think would want to hear that. Like playing Rock Lobster for a bunch of Black people in Detroit. You know?
How did that go over?
It didn't at first, but the more he played it, the more we understood what was going on. And we started to get that.
For anyone wondering.
and then imagine going to a party and you see a bunch of Black people and it says Rock Lobster down, everybody's going down to the floor. And you're like, whoa, so people, nobody's fighting, nobody's shooting.
Yeah.
You know, you play Run DMC and next thing you know, the party's over and somebody starts shooting. So Mojo was an influence. The Wizard, which is Jeff, was a huge influence because of the skill and the technical agility that he had, you know, possessed to play a set like that. And there was a show that came on air. It was called The New Dance Show or The Scene. And it was a local dance show, and they would play the best fucking music. And everything was so fucking fast. You know what I mean? They would play like Numbers Kraftwerk on 45.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've seen those videos I've seen the video clips on YouTube. It's so dope.
It came on every day during the week, and we would get out of school, finish your homework, and you would sit there in front of TV. I watched my grandfather. He watched it because the cameraman would always close up on the girls' booties. You know, he was always sitting there like, you know, and we were listening for the music.
would you say that your basketball hand-eye coordination skills helped you with your DJ skills?
Yeah. That, seriously.
Wow.
Because I was known for two things when I played basketball. I was known for blocking shots, which was amazing at my height,
You have to
and
be
for
quick.
passing. I was a very good passer and very quick.
Yeah.
So my thing was, because of architecture that I studied, all the math classes I took helped me. It was so weird because now when I'm playing basketball, instead of passing the ball to somebody, I would lead them. So I pass the ball to where I want them to be. So if they're running a certain rate of speed, I would have to very quickly judge how fast they can run and put the ball in a spot where they can just run, and it'll be right there when they get to that spot. And that's how I played. So it was almost like I was reading people's minds, or kind of, making things happen before they happen. And people were just kind of like, what the heck? How's he doing that? Throwing the ball without looking, because I saw the guy running behind me quickly, 30 seconds ago. And I know he's going to go full steam. So if I just throw the ball up, I know he's going to be right there. Things like that went right into the DJ. So when I started to DJ, I had almost like it was so, maybe I should make a movie out of this shit. It was such like a obstacle course. Like, honestly, I would go to this record shop called Record Time, and I would do my weekly shopping and say, okay, 1 track on this EP, 3 on this one, and I would buy whatever my budget allowed, and I'd take the records back. And we were living in a loft in a building. I'll never forget. I was on 1 floor. My cousin was living underneath. Carl Craig lived in the building. Kelly Hand lived in that building. And when I would practice DJing, I would have my cousin go in the bag and hand me a record. And then, mind you, I bought house, techno, and hip hop. So he would hand me a record, and whatever he handed me, I had to mix it, no matter what. So that was my regimen. That was my practice. So whatever he handed me, I had to mix it in. I had to find a creative way to make it work, to segue. And oftentimes he would bump the table. My cousin Mike, he would bump the table and the record would skip. But the thing for me that I understood, it was not the mess up. It was how fast can you recover? Because eventually when you're out, especially with vinyl, back in the day, something is going to happen. The record's going to skip something. The needle's going to get dust and it's going to slide all the way across. I don't know if anybody's ever had that shit happen. Ali probably knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, my way of dealing with that is, and people would lose their minds. Like if I was playing a club where the people were right up against the DJ booth, same level as me, I had like some water, and I would just put my fingers in the water and just flick some water on the needle, and they'd be like, "What the fuck's he doing?"
That's the
cleared it
best.
right up. Yeah.
Yep, because it just drags that dust right out. Those are my favorite videos of you, because when you're at the crowd level, I've never seen where they're so in your face.
Yeah.
Like you're speaking to them and you're telling them what to do, and they're like, okay. I'm like, holy shit. Yeah, you command the audience, man.
I think that comes from wanting to feel what they feel.
Yeah.
And wanting them to feel what I feel in the booth. So the closer I can get to the crowd, that's why I used to love, we had like a residency deep dish at the end in London. And for me to remember at the end, the DJ booth was in the middle of the dance floor. So everybody was around you. You couldn't hide.
It was surrounded. Yeah.
You couldn't hide from what was happening. And the DJ booth was just big enough for maybe one other person besides me and Sharon, to be in the booth. But most people didn't want to be in the booth because the party was on the dance floor and the booth was in the middle of the dance floor. So for me, that was always like, that's one of my fondest memories of having that perfect connection with the crowd and the room and the sound.
Yeah, it's the same level too.
Fantastic club too.
The same, just maybe a little, like a step or two.
One step up, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know why that kind of layout never caught on. Like why over the years, everything just evolved to this age-old kind of principle of, okay, let's stick the DJ on a stage on one side of the room and put the crowd on the other side of the room. And, most of the time, the sound is only on our side of the room pointing at the crowd, you know?
Yeah.
But the end DJ booth was a little different. I mean, the people were not directly standing behind you. It was like the entrance was from behind, and they were standing next to you on the side.
But they were all around you.
And
Yeah.
they were all
like,
around you, but not really behind you. But how do you
Yeah.
feel about DJ booths where people are standing like literally behind you and looking like right over your shoulder?
That's how at Blitz in Munich is now. It's not in the very center.
Yeah, that's great.
There's
And I
people
love
in the
Blitz
back
in Munich,
watching
but that is the
rails.
only downside, I think.
Yeah. You don't like people standing behind you?
I'm a little bit kind of like weird when people just like right behind you, looking over your shoulder all the time, like really critically, like what is he doing?
Chris,
That's
the
why I
same
never
as-
liked Boiler Room.
Yeah, that's the same as
Oh.
Goa in Rome's the same. That's
Go
exactly.
and Rome, you have the hands like
Yeah.
between there's this gate and there's the hands coming over all the time, touching you.
I actually refused.
By the way,
Sit
by
down.
now in the pandemic, I would love to have that happening.
True.
But desanitize the hands that come through.
The grabbing hands, grab all they can.
Yeah, I mean,
I had to
I
turn
think
down a
it's-
boiler room before because I didn't want people behind me.
I
didn't like
did the same
idea of
thing.
it. I didn't like it. So
I
I
agree with you
agreed. I did
100%.
detrimental, and I agreed to do it only if I could have my friends and family immediately behind me.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, I mean, just reminiscing about where it all started for me. I mean, I never wanted to be the center of attention. I just like, for me, the most important thing was to educate the crowd. Obviously, as DJs, we need to entertain and educate. But I was firmly entrenched in the education. Like, I wanted to turn the audience on to all the great new music that I was getting turned on to. And it was more, for me, it was more about like, I wanted to be heard as opposed to being seen. And over the years, it's become all about being seen. And I'm still, where I am today, 30 years later, I'm still not 100% comfortable with being in the spotlight. Anytime you go into a room that you've never played before, if you didn't go to sound check to really see what it's like, and you don't know what it's like at sound check because there's nobody in the club, you know, I'm always uncomfortable when I come in and it's all, you know, all eyes on you and they're filming, and then like, you know, the VIPs behind you, everyone's all over you.
Oh,
And that's
yeah.
I'm still 30 years later, I'm still uncomfortable.
I
with that. I mean, after a few shots, you
loosen up.
After
a
some
bit.
sake, yeah.
after you get over that and you loosen up. But I'm still generally all about, like you said, you know, being tucked away somewhere in a room and having the crowd with their eyes closed, focusing on the sound that's coming out at them. You know?
Surprisingly, a lot of musicians and artists in general don't really like to always be the center of attention. And a lot of people don't understand that. But I think the only way that I've been able to relate it for myself was anytime I've been able to go to a show and watch someone do something incredible, a musician or a DJ or whatever, those goosebumps and the inspiration that you get from watching that performance, for me, it always made me want to go home and do something creative. Go home and be artistic in some way and try my own hand at doing something my own way. And to be a performer and to be able to inspire the crowd, show them new music, make them have goosebumps is the ultimate reward for that. You know, to receive inspiration from people and to also give inspiration in return.
Now imagine growing up in Detroit.
Yeah.
And what you see is Jeff, and what you see is Juan, and what you hear is Kevin and D-Win and Anthony Sheikh Shakir. That's what you're saying is that was the essence of why you get a Jeff Mills and why you get a DJ Godfather.
Absolutely.
Because you could go to a show and see somebody and you're like, oh, so that's what we're doing now. And it wouldn't be like, it was goosebumps, but Detroit is a hard city. So you couldn't be like, oh shit, he just, you know, you would have to be like, oh, all right, I see. And you're really feeling it. And you dance or you do whatever you express yourself. But the first thing you do is you go home and you try and outdo whatever you just saw. You try and take it up a notch. And you're like, okay, it's almost like they silently challenged you to a duel that they don't know about, you know? So now you're thinking, oh.
Was there a certain seriousness to it?
It not now. Back in the day, it was super serious. It was so serious that when you were making music, if you made a track that sounded like Rob Hood and you played it for someone and you say, what do you think of this? He said, oh, it sounds just like Rob. Fuck, you throw it out. And think about worldwide how many people would kill to have a track that sounds like just like Rob Hood. But in Detroit, you didn't want to sound like anyone. You didn't want to DJ like anyone. No. You wanted to sound better. You wanted to DJ better, or at least your own interpretation of that level. Like it's on the level, you know, nobody's trying to recreate the Bells, but they want a track that's just as hot as the Bells. Yeah. You know what I mean? But nobody's going to put a bell in that shit.
I'm curious though. I mean, it seems like in the early 90s, maybe late 80s, that was kind of in the US kind of relevant in a lot of genres of music. I mean, even like in hip hop and stuff like that, being not necessarily competitive, but at a point where when you see somebody pushing the limit, you're just like, damn, I got to do something better than that.
Yeah, it was artistically competitive, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, people pushed you to better yourself, and sometimes you were only as good as the people you surrounded yourself with, you know?
It's sport. It's just like the Olympics. It's like a world record. You know, somebody's going to try and run faster than the person who had the world record, and they're not ashamed that they're doing that, and they're going to train to try and beat the world record. They're not training to try and win one race.
Yeah.
So that's what our mindset was. Jeff was the world record. You know what I mean? Juan's, you know, Cosmic Cars was the world record. And everybody's like, if I can make a track that doesn't sound like that, but is as hot as Cosmic Cars, you know, that's the mindset. So now you're in the lab and you're thinking of all this shit you can do. And that's the creativity and you end up with a Moody Man, you end up with a Omar S or a K-Han, you know, and all these people who are so different, but so fucking good. You know, in their own right. That's the beauty of that city.
I think that's, but I've learned so much right now, and but I generally think that it is the beauty about techno music in general. I mean, there's obviously a lot of copycats, but especially in the early days, people listened to something and they wanted to turn it into something new because it was like, oh, I can take it a notch up. I can do this differently.
Exactly.
Chris, a question for Chris and Matt, actually. Like, I feel like that mentality is very American, and I don't know, was it the same back in the day in like the UK and in Europe, where artists kind of trying to one up each other or somehow outdo them, or was it more just they were just doing their own thing?
I think it was probably very competitive back in the 80s, as like it was in the States, because there was maybe less people doing it, and it was also, I don't know. Yeah, I think back then it's because, I guess it's as we've developed with technology, there's far more people doing it. So it's flooded, isn't it? Music's flooded, so it's different. You know, so it's we're in a different state of.
But the end of the 90s, it was really like when you look at Prime distribution, you remember that time. So Prime was like the biggest distributor from the middle of the 90s till beginning of the 2000s of, let's say, that loopy techno in the world, you know?
Yeah.
And all the big labels, Marco Corolla, Adam Bayer's Drum Code, Gaetano Parisio's Art, and Conform, all these labels were distributed by Prime, and you wanted to be distributed by Prime. I crawled through the tunnel to London, to Prime, to knee in front of them to distribute my label. Yeah. And just like Eric just said right now, it's just you wanted to be as impactful as the other labels, but not sounding like them. So you wanted to do your thing, but you wanted to be as confident about it and as resolute about it, you know, and that was the amazing thing. So people didn't try to really copy themselves, even if I totally did. I copied everyone. But it turned out to sound different because you were really bad at copying. And and
that's a huge point, though. That's the truth.
Yeah, it is.
I could hear it from the records. All the imports that were coming across, there were so much loopy techno that we had this inside joke where we were saying that was Adam Carolla and Marco Bayer, and we would mix up the names just because, you know, Christian Selway and all the. It was just this running joke because it was all one big lump.
Exactly.
You know?
It was on one big loop.
Yeah.
One big loop. That's it. But there were certain things that broke through where you were like, holy crap, that shit is nice.
Yeah.
You know? And the another mindset of Detroit guys is we kind of, to our own detriment, we kind of like to turn a lot of shit down or like steer clear and do the opposite. Like he said, he went to Prime. Prime had messaged me when I started Subject Detroit and they wanted to distribute it. So I went to meet with them. And it was the funniest shit because he gave me, the guy I was talking to, he gave me a stack of white labels and promos. I mean, a fat stack at Prime distribution, right? So me being young DJ Bone from Detroit, I asked him where the turntable was. And he looked at me like in complete horror. He was like, what the fuck? And it's the same shit I used to do to Mad Mike. I'm not going to waste anyone's vinyl, you know, because I know how precious it is for you to press it, whether it's a white label or whatever. I would hate for someone to take one of my promos on vinyl and put it somewhere to gather dust. It needs to go to somebody who's going to use it. Yeah. So I asked him, I said, I want to listen to these because no disrespect to any of the labels. I just want to make sure that what I like, I keep. And whatever else I don't like can go to someone else who likes it.
Because if it's environmentally unfriendly, you want to have someone use it.
Even back then, I was on the cusp of green.
Totally.
The 90s.
Eric, in those early, I mean, did you feel like there was this incredible revolution in music that was happening? Or did it, obviously, you know, Model 500 started releasing records in the mid to late 80s, between the mid to late 80s.
82.
Charivari
and Cybertron, Alleys of Your Mind.
Cybertron,
82, 83, I think.
Yeah. So that it started, you know, quite early. And then, you know, guys like Derek and others came along after that. Like, did you feel the impact in being in Detroit in the early 90s? Did you feel the impact that this music was having globally? Or for you, was it like some local guys that had a bit of success and you weren't necessarily seeing where it was headed?
It was, because of the time, it was a little bit of both. But it was, how can I say it? Well, the impact, I can't express enough that the best part of my musical career was growing up in Detroit during that period. Because this was new music. Put it this way, we heard Model 500, everyone thought that that was from Japan. Mm-hmm. We had no idea it was somebody in Detroit making that. Yeah. We couldn't even fathom that shit, that they were black, you know?
One's music was extraterrestrial. I mean, it just sounded like from another planet. Same goes
exactly.
For yeah.
To hear something that you never heard before that didn't sound like anything else, I can only equate it to something like maybe the first time someone heard Miles Davis or, you know, or heard Ella Fitzgerald sing, just something.
The first time someone heard acid.
Yes. The first person who tweaked the acid, the 303, and you go, what is that sound? Even if you didn't like it, it's something you've never heard before. And it was so unique. And the city at that time, everything was techno. I don't know if you can imagine it. Every radio station was playing midday mixes, right, of techno. You could watch the New Dance Show on TV on a, you know, local station, but you could watch it every day during the week, and they're playing techno tracks. At night, techno. Every car driving around, you hear Alleys of Your Mind, you hear Clear, you hear R9. It was ridiculous every fucking night. And in a blink, it kind of switched from that to hip hop. You know what I mean? But that moment, it was a pretty good period of time. It was so crazy. The only knowledge we had of the impact it was having elsewhere was when Derek or Juan or somebody would come back from when they would go to Europe, and they would come back and the stories they would tell. So of course, 80% of it's bullshit because it's Detroit. So a lot of guys will come back and say, we'd say, how was the gig? You went to Amsterdam, right? It sucked. There's only like 200 people there when there's like 6,000. And the reason they say that is because they don't want anyone else to want to go and do this. They don't want anyone else to be able to go and do this.
Yeah.
It was before the internet. It was before, cell phones. So all you had was their word.
Yeah.
So we knew it was making an impact, but they were downplaying exactly how huge it was. We knew it was huge once we started to see like Kevin do a release on 6 Records or on something from the UK, and it's got remixes from Claude Young and Terrence Parker, and then when MK started putting out, and then the remixes that you were doing, that's how I knew about you, was through Carl. Ali. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Because when Deep Dish came and did the remixes, everybody in Detroit stopped. They were just like, ooh, what is that? Because it was so funky and so different. You know what I mean? I play him for my wife and she's just like, that's not Ali. I'm like, yes, it is. That's young Ali right there.
That's why Carl he holds such a place in my heart, because he was a mentor from those early years where I was trying to find my way musically. I had a lot to say, but I needed mentorship in some respect to move forward through the business and through the creative kind of maze. But I mean, back then I would buy, I don't know about the others, but I would buy every record that had a 313 area code on. Like I was that obsessed with Detroit techno.
Yeah.
But the thing is, everything back then was that good, basically.
It was that good. Yeah.
Labels. Yeah.
But that's crazy when you think about it. Like imagine today you go out and you buy everything up that has a particular, area
You
code.
can't do it now.
I was wondering, and maybe this is a question for everyone, maybe not, but Eric, there's a British writer. He used to go by the name K-Punk. His real name's Mark Fisher. He's kind of a cultural theorist, and he does a bunch of speeches on YouTube. If anyone's interested, you can check him out. But he talks about how, every decade had a defining moment musically, whether it was the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, all the way up into the 80s and the 90s with the birth of house music and techno and even drum and bass, where things were absolutely groundbreaking and just changed. And like you're talking about how Detroit had that, but something that happened at the turn of the millennium where everything just stopped. And even till today, there isn't really any kind of, he claims there's no groundbreaking movements musically that are happening. Everything is a remix of something that's happened to the past, or a new version of something that's already happened, or something retro, or do you feel that way? Is there anything that you've discovered within even just the last 20 years that has made you feel similar to what you've experienced in Detroit, in the early days when you were coming up with techno, or is what Mark Fisher is saying absolutely true?
It's somewhat true, in my opinion. Yeah. Everything that I'm hearing, I don't know. I would honestly have to say like 1 out of maybe 200 or 300 songs I listen to, like comes across as groundbreaking to me, where I have to hear it over and over again. And I'm like, that's phenomenal. Put it this way, think of it in terms of hip hop. And when Childish Gambino came out with This Is America,
yeah,
I thought that was next level.
That was absolutely,
because it didn't sound like anything else.
Yeah.
Also because of the video, I think, right?
Oh, right. The video was phenomenal. Yeah. The beat was phenomenal.
It had something to say.
I tracked down the acapella of that because luckily I have some connections through. I'm so old through my daughter, and it's I got an acapella. And I was like, I'm going to do my own re-edit of this. And I can't wait. It's so powerful and so good. All I did was play the acapella over other tracks.
Yeah.
And it worked. And I would just take the track out. This Is America. Boom, boom, don't that do different. And people would go nuts just because it was so unique what he did. Now, as far as electronic music goes, I don't know. I mean, it's not that people are lazy. It's not that they're not good. It's just, I think, in my opinion, the work schedule, the monotony, traveling, because most of the people who are doing this are on the road constantly. There are very few people who stay at home a lot, you know, for the majority of the year and put out a ton of music, especially in Detroit. My biggest pet peeve, and I'll say this all day, every day, is with underground resistance. I always tell Mike, I say, Mike, I need you to make me some hot ass shit because I need to play it. The world needs to hear some new You Are. And he's like, oh, I'm just happier building museums right now than I am releasing records. And that's all he'll tell me. But for me, Detroit had so many of those moments. You got Juan, then you got the Derek era with, you know, and then you got the Holy Trinity of Juan, Kevin, Derek when they were like unbeatable because they had Claude Young, all these unsung heroes, Claude Young, Shake, all these people who didn't get credit, who are doing all this amazing work on edits and remixes and all this, and still to this day don't get credit, or co-writing songs. So that whole era, and then you had the era where You Are broke through. Remember when Punisher came through? I was like, what in the hell? Punisher was just phenomenal. And Amazon. I'm waiting for another moment where I hear Amazon or Jaguar or Punisher. That's why I go back to You Are, because they had the most groundbreaking tracks, and anyone else who's come close came from You Are, whether it's Rob Hood with Never Grow Old, or Jeff with the Bells, or Alarms, you know what I mean? So it all stems, in my opinion, from the You Are universe, and it expands out. You know what I mean? Because Jeff was part of You Are, Rob was part of You Are, you know? So anything that stems from that, I think, could possibly be groundbreaking, in my opinion, because of the way they think. It's so fucking alien.
Yeah.
It's beyond comprehension. I can speak to Jeff, and 30 seconds in, I'm lost. Because he's, you know how, if I play 3 decks, the reason I do it is because in my mind, I get bored playing 2, and I need to be able to, like I say, have people anticipate what's going to happen. Jeff, when I speak to him, it's almost like he's on 5 decks. Because he'll start on this point and he'll be way over there, and I'm still trying to understand what he was saying right here. And then I'm catching up, and then I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Oh shit. Did you guys lose me?
No, we're still.
Oh, okay.
We just lost.
My screen fell asleep.
We lost.
But that's what I think needs to happen. And it's tough to say, okay, does everyone have to like switch up their production style? Because I'm happy. I'm happy.
But Eric,
hearing...
is there something in the past like 5-6 years that you would say like this is groundbreaking new stuff, or is it just really well done reinvention of already been there styles? Like we see the explosion of acid techno in the past 5-6 years, and it's literally, I mean, if somebody's young and hears that for the first time, of course it's mind-blowing. But if somebody has been around for like 20-30 years, it's like, yeah, I mean, it sounds more modern, but it's kind of exactly the same stuff we were listening to for 20 years ago, right?
Yeah. I think most of it for me is the same. The last time I think, as far as a genre goes, that I had my mind blown was maybe drum and bass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it was completely new and different and amazing.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. I'm still amazed by the techno. I'm still amazed I'm still amazed even producing. I'm still amazed how well defined you can get a 909 hi-hat, and it just blows your mind still after like 30 years, you know.
The quality of techno
just
now
like there's still so much potential in this music to keep us excited and entertained for years to come, I believe. But Mo, who was that person you were talking about who did that?
His name was Mark Fisher.
Mark Fisher. I really need to read that because I totally agree somehow. Because when it comes to mainstream music, I've been really watching so much YouTube documentaries lately. And I do have a playlist on Spotify, which I call 60, 70, 80, 90, 0, and 10th. And I mean, obviously, 80s was the peak of, let's say, mainstream music. It was like what the fuck was happening in the 80s? Like technology came together with artistry and with a new mindset, and everything came together, and there was all these great bands and everything, but was just, but somehow when I look at my playlist and I keep updating it, I really have a hard time putting like stuff in there which is recent, because it's either done by bands that have been existing for so long, 9 Inch Nails or something like this, you know, that are really like some tracks from recent albums which I really like. But new stuff, I mean, will we look back at Kendrick Lamar, for example, as we look back to Prince?
No.
You know,
well, younger people would.
But
yeah, but I think what Mark Fisher was trying to say, just to clarify, was there's always these standout tracks or standout musicians or standout acts that come out with something that's refreshing for us, and we're just like, holy shit, of course, there it is. But I think he was trying to identify in particular like whole movements.
Yeah,
you know, like
that's what I'm talking about too. I'm talking about whole movements.
But Chris, I think Chris, I think going back to what you were saying earlier, you know, about vinyl. I mean, music is another ancient format, you know, and maybe the next revolution won't be music. You know, it's going to be something completely different, and that's what I think we're looking at. It's going to be
Instagram DJs.
Wait a minute, but Matt, what do you mean? What kind of style?
Well, you know, whether it's going to be like a VR thing or an augmented reality thing, it's going to be something
like completely different experiences.
Completely different. And because I mean, there's not so much more that we can do with music, and probably when it comes to songwriting, maybe the best music has already been written. You know.
Well, I'm working on it, Matt. I'm trying to get this thing where you can inject the music, right?
Download it.
I think you have to mainline it.
It's interesting. Tigga, you know, he's got this podcast, and he interviewed. I remember the interview he did with Fortet, Kieran, and he talks about the exact same thing, Mo, where he talks about like everything is a rehash of an old idea. There's been no new musical revolution.
Yeah.
Stylistically,
but for older people like us, we've heard this before. But this younger generation, to them, they weren't around in the 90s to hear the rave.
But that's more of a lack of context. That's not necessarily.
But I'm still amazed by.
But these are the people that are consuming the music. Most of the music at the parties that we play at. It's like this young crowd that's just like, wow, this is this is what acid techno is. This is amazing.
I think you all. I'm still amazed by a simple kick drum and a hi hat of a 909. Aren't you all?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Put this way, I played.
Sorry, Matt. I didn't want to cut you off.
I did my own re-edit of Strings of Life to play out, and I would play the original sometimes, and kids would come up and they would ask me. They would just say, "Oh, I love that piano track." So, like you said, it's context and it's age, and it's because they know it's a good track. Oh, Nami. Cheers. I cracked a new beer.
Cheers, guys.
So they know what's good when they hear it. They don't necessarily know it's a classic track. So I'm sitting there and I don't know what to think. I'm like, should I be upset that you don't know it's a classic, or should I be extremely impressed that you love it even though you don't know it's a classic?
Mm-hmm.
You're also kind of educating them, you know. You're like, well, hey, they never really heard this before, so now they're hearing something new to them, even though it's not new, you know.
It's weird though. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah. Trap. Like, how do you not know this song? A part of you wants to say that.
Yes.
But then you're like, hey, this is their first time hearing this song, so like that's what, you know, what's their feeling hearing that song for the first time. They're like, whoa, this is crazy. They're probably trying to Shazam. Well, it probably would work in Shazam, but they would work, you know, it's like for them, it's the first time.
So I should be excited for them, right? Because they're like, oh, the piano track. And I go, oh, you mean Strings of Life? And they go, no, I don't know the piano track. I want the piano.
Yeah.
Like trap to me is not new. I mean, to a lot of younger kids, it's like revolutionary, right? But for me, trap just sounds like early hip hop with the 808 kick drums, and it's not a big stretch. No. You know, it's not, to me. It's okay. It's great because, you know, they're using modern production techniques or whatever, and mix down techniques, but it's not revolutionary. It's not like a new music
Well, everything seems to be revolutionary to young kids, especially in underground everything underground genres of music where there's a lack of documentation of its history, and there's like gaps of even though we're supposed to be educating the youth for sometimes a lot of young people these days don't really have the attention span to really like fully grasp the history of music and have a context of where it came from and how it built. And then now we have the situation like with techno where everyone's going back to playing like rave music, and to these kids it's like, holy shit, this is new, this is brand new, I've never heard anything like this. And for maybe older people it's like, well, we've been through this and I don't want to do it again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's, you know, it's all context, and a part of it is having the education out there for people to understand the history of the music. And I don't know what I'm saying. Maybe I'm rambling on.
No, you're right. You know what I did
Yeah.
during the lockdown when it first started? I decided to reach out to the club here in Amsterdam, Radian, and I proposed a night. My wife helped me come up with this idea to do a night where I basically, because of the situation with the restrictions and everybody has to be seated and all this stuff, this is before everything was locked down. You had this distance, you know, you had to have a mask and you had to be seated. And I would go to the Radion and I would basically do a show and I would have a topic. So the first part of the show, what I do is I would select certain tracks to go with the topic, and I would play each track, have a visual for it behind me that we had a guy, our visual guy come up with, our creative guy. And I would explain the track or what it meant to me or what I thought was behind it. And I did this with maybe 15 tracks, sometimes 20. And then after that, just so they wouldn't get too bored, like kids in a class, I would do a mix. But I did the whole thing sitting down, you know? So it wasn't supposed to be about, ooh, this is a party. And it was going to be educational, but also you get a mix at the end. So I did Chicago house. I did Detroit techno. I did a show on broken beats, which were, you know, would range from hip hoppy stuff all the way up to like drum and bass. And it was more to educate. And the funniest thing it just brought to my mind when you said that is they went nuts. And I was struggling with myself on whether or not to include this in the show. And I played Out of Space, Prodigy, for the Broken Beats show. They jumped up. They couldn't stop themselves. It erupted. And they were just like, ah. And people who had never heard that shit before were like, what is this? What is this? And that was just amazing. So what you said, it makes complete sense. You know what I mean? Like when kids hear rave and they're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I saw it. I've seen it happen. You know, I did so many shows. I did one that was all D-Tron. I did one that was all Ben Sims. I did all UR, you know, and it's kind of trying to walk them through it so they can have that history, but still bring them up into the present.
Dude, that's so incredibly important because there is seriously a major lack of educational resources for electronic music history out there because of its nature alone being such underground music and also being kind of music that's what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Just it's never been in the light in the eyes of the mainstream. So I mean, we can find
incredibly influential.
We can find tons and tons of history of jazz music. We can find history of rock and roll, where it came from, to the blues. We can find, but there is a serious lack, other than like maybe a handful of documentaries that have come out, like Modulations that came out in the 90s that talked about like the history of electronic music and stuff like that. But in comparison to so many other genres, this music that has changed the face of the world has a real sense of lack of history for the youth to actually get a full grasp on. That's why things like YouTube have become so important, because people can go back to YouTube and Discogs and listen to old records and be like, holy shit, like I didn't even know this stuff existed. So I mean, I applaud you for that, because we need more of that. We need more of that education for the new generations, you know? I
think it's important, man. I mean, it gives them a leg up for when they get ready to go back into the clubs. You know what I mean? So it gives them a nice footing. So they have the confidence. Like I know what the fuck that is, you know? Oh, that's blah, 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 you know? So it used to be, you know, from being in the US, the rave scene, the rave dads, the rave moms, basically it nurtured itself, right? It wasn't always the DJ educating people. You would have people in the crowd who would have the new schoolers acting all wild, and they'd be like, hey, it's not about that here.
Yeah.
It's about peace, love, unity, respect, blah, blah, blah. And they would, you know, school them, and they would take them in and kind of, you know, adopt these little kids, give them some candy, whatever, and be like, look, this is what raving is all about. You know, this is, so it goes with the culture. It goes with the music, with the scene, the parties, and that stopped. It became, holy shit, I just paid €50 to go to this massive event. I gotta post and say it's the best thing ever, or else I'm gonna feel really stupid. You know what I mean? I just paid €50 for this. You know, how was it? Oh, it was the best shit. It was the best thing ever. And they can't tell you anything about the DJs or who, you know, it was just the place to be.
Incredibly important what you're saying there, because it's like you can of course enjoy an event like this, or enjoy the music, or enjoy that certain type of music without any context, but you're missing out on so much depth.
Yeah,
sure, absolutely.
Exactly what you're saying, the footing that you have, the confidence that you have to experience something with a certain knowledge gives you such a deeper experience.
It's benefits all around. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I mean, you can't blanket brush everyone with the same brush when it comes to like the youth. You know, you can't say that all of them don't care or anything, because there are certain groups of young people who are getting into the music who are incredibly interested, and they dig and they do the research and they learn, and I applaud that. I mean, I was the same way when I was young. I mean, I didn't have a lot of access to information. The internet didn't exist, so the way we learned was kind of like, I mean, for example, maybe I've never really said this out loud before, but Bone, you were in LA like in the early 2000s when I was first starting my record label.
Yeah.
And like, man, I was a sponge, you know, I was raving in the mid 90s, but like learning about techno and getting so much information came from like being around you guys when you came to town. You were doing like, I think they were called, what was the name of the event series? Project Detroit Sessions.
Oh, and you came to the Detroit Sessions.
Dude, way. I mean, you know, On used to actually hire me to go pick up some of the DJs from the airport, you know?
I remember.
Yeah, wait, I mean, like,
did you come to her birthday party at the house? You're joking.
Juan Atkins was there.
Can I tell that story?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I mean, this is where I got to meet all of my legends, you know, like all the people that I looked up to, man. I was like sitting there on the couch like a ghost, because, you know, I'm sitting around all these dudes, but go ahead.
You sitting next to Juan?
Yeah. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Remember he played that set in the living room?
He did. Yeah.
Dude. So my wife's birthday, right? So her birthday comes up and her mom is like, we're going to do this big dinner type, you know, thing. And we're like, cool. So we had, at the time, Juan Atkins was living in LA. And I had moved from Detroit to LA to be with An, because instead of her coming to Detroit, I was like, let me go to LA. So we just kind of tell some people and invite a few people to come to the house to eat. You know, we're going to have a big spread, barbecue, whatever, a bunch of Filipino food. So somehow word gets out, and there's this message board. I don't know what it was on. I don't know if it was AOL.
Rave links.
What was it?
Yeah.
And next thing you know, there's these posts. We hear there's a party in the Valley with DJ Bone and Juan Atkins. And we're like, it's not a party. And, you know, it's a birthday from my girlfriend. And so it gets bigger and bigger. And there's these threads, and all these people are asking, where is it? Where's the party? How much is it? So my wife, jokingly, she asked me, she goes, oh my God. She goes, I got like 30, 40 people asking me about the party in the Valley with you and Juan. Yeah. She just texted me. She goes, 313, the hyper real.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
That's what it was.
It was hyper real.
Thank you. Thanks, wife. It was hilarious. So she was joking. All these people want to come to the party, which is basically our house in the Valley, right? Thank God we had cooked a bunch of food. Her mom was bringing a whole pig, and a bunch of food. It's a big Filipino spread. So I just joked and I said, well, if they bring a bottle, fuck it. Because it was just people from a techno chat room back in the day. So she seriously went on there and posted, this is the address. If you bring a bottle of alcohol, it's all good. We got plenty of food. And we had food for like 60, 70 people. Yeah. So all these people start showing up, right? We don't know who's who. We knew a couple of people. You know, we knew you, we knew the Joy Behavior crew. That was it. So all these people are coming in all nerdy and they're like, oh, I'm such and such, you know, from 313 Hyperreal. And so now we got a house full of people. Then Juan Atkins shows up, right? Yeah. Nonchalant. He just comes in, sees a table full of food. He was like, happy birthday, and he goes, ooh, I'm gonna fix a plate. So he goes and he's standing there waiting patiently behind people, and they're looking and they're like, you can go ahead. And he's like, no, wait. So he's fixing a plate of food, gets it, goes and sits on the couch next to you and some other people, and he's just sitting there eating. So these people in LA are like, what the fuck,
man?
Next to Juan Atkins, eating some barbecue and some pancit, you know, so he's just sitting there. And then after a while, we had a DJ, we had the turntables and the mixer set up in the living room. Yeah. We had moved the couches away. So Juan looks and he kept, like a little kid, he kept hinting. He goes, hey, Bone, man, if I had known you had the turntable set up, I'd have brought my records. And I was like, oh, you know, I just kind of giggled. Then he said it again. Then he said it again. And I go, Juan, you only live 10 minutes away. I said, do you want to play? He's like, I'll be back. Give me 15 minutes. He went home, got his records, came back, went in the living room, started played for about 3 or 4 hours. I'm not kidding. In our living room, in the zone, just killing it. Man. And everybody's in shock. They're like, this is Juan Atkins in a house in the San Fernando Valley, just playing this techno. It was the craziest shit.
It was certainly ever. One of the highlights of my history in techno.
I forgot you were there, dude.
I was super young and I was very impressionable. This was like what, 2002, 2003 or something like that?
2002 or 2003.
I was like 22 years old at the time or something like that, or 21. I mean, I was just a kid, and it was shocking because I mean, LA never had a huge history in techno, you know. So these are people that we always looked up to, but rarely ever came out to the West Coast, and it was just awesome to have that kind of intimate setting.
Oh my god! And it was On, because On was the first one. I had never played in LA, and On said, "Well, since you're going to be out here, why don't you do a party?" So we did like a Thanksgiving Eve at this place on a Wednesday or something.
Yeah,
and
it was at the old Orion in downtown LA.
Yes.
Oh, that place.
And they ended up with 2,500 people in that shit.
Yeah. It was crazy.
The first time in LA, I was like, what the fuck, on a Wednesday?
Yeah.
So after that, we did me and Juan, and then we did me and Ken Ishii.
I actually picked up Ken from the airport on that one.
You brought Ken to the hotel and everything. I remember. And they wouldn't let him in the club because they thought he wasn't old enough. So they were asking Ken Ishii for his ID. They're like, sorry, man. They're like, there's some guy out here who's trying to get in, and he swears he's supposed to DJ, but he looks too young. So we had to go and get him. And he didn't have a record bag. He only had a canvas bag with like some vinyl in it. Yeah. We were like, where's your record bag? Because they were like, well, where's your records? He goes, right here. He's like, no, you just bought those. Yeah, like one of those grocery bags, the recyclable.
Like Trader Joe's bag. Or
something. Damn, I forgot. Yeah, so that's
good history.
That's what it's all about, man.
Yeah. You said it. Going back to what you guys were describing about Juan, I mean, I don't think a lot of people realize that for a lot of us that started out by playing house parties, like that's our happy place. Like we feel really comfortable. Yeah. I mean, you can have a very big established DJ who came from that, go back to that, and everyone's wondering what the fuck they're doing, why they're doing it, and whether like how they feel about doing it, whatever. They don't realize that we're in our happy place.
Yeah. Oh man, that's the happiest. Juan was he didn't want to stop. He just kept playing, and I kept checking on him like, you okay? You need something to drink? He's like, I'm good, man, I'm good. He was just like so happy Mo, you know, he was there. He was like, Juan did not want to stop playing. And it was funny because An made everybody take their shoes off when they came in.
Can't tear up the rug, man. You know,
it was hilarious. It was the weirdest shit ever.
That's funny. Best. It's funny because like I think back at times like in maybe in the last like 5 or 6 years where I played at a house party, and there's something about it where just like I don't know, you just kind of let loose. Maybe because you don't really have to play to the crowd. You just play whatever the hell you want. And like people are just there, like, you know, like, hey, you don't have to please this club of people that paid to get in. It's just
and you're mostly surrounded by friends and people you know for the most part, you know.
Yeah.
I remember Rais used to have those house parties that we used to play in, and we'd get a big tank of nitrous, and then those parties got wild.
Matt, did you play many house parties?
Yeah, loads. I mean, loads. We had loads in the 90s. We used to do a lot after, because the clubs used to finish at 3 a.m. So we'd always go back to someone's house.
All right.
Yeah.
I know
was it a party? It was for after party?
I felt like this is more a US thing, maybe.
No. I mean,
because we always had other opportunities.
We just had clubs that ran 24 hours.
Yeah, we did some pretty crazy. In London in the early 90s, everything finished at 3. So we'd always go back to someone's house. So yeah. And there was a few times where we'd invite guys like Dave Durrell back to the suburbs to play. Things like that would happen where you'd have a famous DJ. I think we did a New Year's Eve party at a friend's house. We had Guru Josh. He came to the house.
Oh man.
No way.
He passed away some years ago.
Yeah. I loved it.
He was like our token, you know, star in the house. Yeah.
Can I ask Matt a question? Yeah. What about the pirate radio that was going on back in the day?
Yeah,
was that a huge like catalyst, or was it something that just kind of? Do you think that electronic music will be the same in the UK as it is now without that?
I mean that was the thing, especially in the mid 80s, the whole like soul boy scene that then turned into the house music thing and then became jungle, drum and bass. I mean, it all came from pirate radio. Everything. That was
Man,
where
wasn't there pirate radio stations on boats before?
Everywhere, yeah. I mean, that was Radio Caroline, wasn't it? Was that the one on the boat?
Yeah.
And but especially in suburbs or like South London, there was some very famous radio stations where Colin Dale would play. Yes. That was where everyone.
That's why I asked, because I knew Colin, and he was one of the really instrumental UK people who welcomed me with open arms. Him, Colin Dale, Colin Favor, Brenda Russell.
Yeah. But that was where you'd hear the best music, the most underground music was on the pirate radio stations. You know, that was where people.
I thought it was the best shit ever.
Yeah, and I mean, did you ever hear the tapes? Did they come back to Detroit? I mean, did you ever hear people?
I would bring tapes back to Detroit.
Oh wow!
Because everybody wanted to go hang out. I wanted to stay in the flat and record these shows.
Wow!
Because I was in awe. It reminded me of Mojo. It reminded me of the new dance show. I was like, this is the heat. This is what's hot, right? You know, I don't think I'm going to get this if we go to that club. I don't think I'm going to get this. To imagine having a vibe at home.
Yeah.
It blew my mind. And the MC and the way they were just talking up everything. And it was just so fast paced and everything was going off. And I was just like, it was new to me.
Yeah.
And I was in awe.
I think with going back to that whole competitive thing, I mean that was definitely a pirate radio station. You know, you had to have the best shit when you played. So everyone was, especially when it became drum and bass or early jungle. You know, I think we had Carl Cox on the show talking about that. You know, why he moved over to techno because he couldn't keep up with all the jungle DJs playing all this new shit. You know, you had to be really on it.
All the dub plates.
Yeah.
Guest star.
Hey.
Say good night. You're up.
Our special guest for tonight.
Did you have a sip of Daddy's beer?
He's up late.
Yes,
Eric, your first residency. I'm going to jump from like the Music Institute years all the way fast forward kind of to your residency, your official residency was at Shelter. There's a shelter in Chicago, as everyone knows, but there's also a shelter in Detroit. And you were playing there how many nights a week? Just one or two? Two nights.
So I would play every once in a while. I would play on Friday nights. I do the hip hop floor.
Ah, okay.
And on Saturday, I was doing this event called Love Club. And actually, Thomas Barnett was the one who took one of my mixes and gave it to this guy who was going to start a night at Shelter. His name Dennis. So he gave this tape to Dennis, and Dennis was like, "Ooh, I like this. Can he come and play, on Saturday night?" Cool. So I go and play. And Dennis was like, do you have any friends that can come next week? Because the night was going to be like house, disco, techno, hip hop, but just all funky stuff. And I said, yeah, I'll bring some. I got friends. So next week I came by myself again and just brought more records. So I was playing the house, the techno, and the hip hop. Mm-hmm. And I was playing, I'll never forget, D Win was there. D Win used to play at the Music Institute. Mm-hmm. And I would see D Win, and he would be there, and he would have his eyes closed, and he's doing this. And the funniest thing is, I thought he was getting down when I play house and techno. I was like, damn, I can't believe this legend, D Win, is there. And he would tell me, like after maybe 2-3 months, he goes, you know what my favorite part is when you play? I said, what? He goes, when you play hip hop. I was like, what? But that was my first residency, was at Shelter. And it was really cool because it was a legendary club in Detroit. This guy, Scott Gogo Gordon, that played there, who was almost like a mentor to Richie. Mm. Richie used to play there. And to be able to do that, and I was young. I wasn't even old enough to drink on U.S. standards. I was like 19, 20, and the legal drinking age is 21.
Were you
so I sneak in my own drink. Wow. Old school. I would bring a 2-liter of like cherry Coke. Yeah. Before we go, I would pour half of it out and fill it up with Captain Morgan. And then just put it in my bin, because before Record Bag, I would have this big recycling bin full of records. It wasn't even a milk crate, it was a recycling bin. Wow. And I come in, and security's looking, he's like, it's just cherry Coke. And I was like, yep. And I come in, I play like 3.5, 4 hours, and it was so cool. Even at the end of the night, I would just break it down to like really slow. I don't know how to put it. Like, remember Enigma? Those kind of beats?
Yeah.
So from hip hop into that, and then just do that tempo for the rest of the night, because people were so hyped up that the owner of the place, he actually told me, he said, you have to do me a favor. Can you play some bad records or something? And I was like, what? He goes, nobody's drinking. They're all on the dance floor. And I said, well, you need to run a drink special, because I'm doing my job. So what he did, he was hilarious. So what he did, he ran a drink special. I'll never forget it. It was these little bottles, almost like the size of a flask, of Wild Irish Rose, which is like the worst, cheapest wine you can get in the US. It was horrible. They had flavors like orange and green apple and shit like that. So they would sell those at the bar. Yeah, it was horrible. But it would get you fucked up though. So he would sell them for like $2 or something at the end of the night, and everybody would just be like, all fucked up. So that's why I had to bring the music down, because people were just too hype on standing on the bar. But yeah, that was my first residency. I started off there. I played I ended up at like 4 or 5 nights a week at 3 different clubs, Industry, a couple other places, Lush. And then I ended up at Motor in Hamtramck, which is basically Detroit, because Hamtramck is surrounded by Detroit. Mm-hmm. But Motor was special because for the first time, we had a voice, and I was able to have a say-so in who the guests were. Mm-hmm. So I brought in Dave Clark. I brought in Groove Rider, Dave Angel, freaking Advent Live for the first time in the US. But absolutely crushed it and blew my mind. Green Velvet, Derek Carter. So we had all these people. They had Carl Cox calling the club, you know, saying personally, saying, you know, I want to come play Motor, you know. So it was the place. It was the place. And it just got to the point where the owners, there were like 2 owners who lived in Detroit, 2 or 3, and like 4 or 5 who lived in Florida who were kind of investors. You know how that works in the US. And the investors are looking at the money, and the owners in Detroit are kind of like, we got this special thing going. And they kind of got overruled because now they're like, look, we need these names in the magazine and what we see in this. And back when, what was it called? Mixer or something? Camel, some cigarette company had a magazine. And they were like paying clubs to put their product in the club and have their ashtrays and napkins and all that shit. So they started a magazine. I think it was Camel. And then whoever they saw in the magazine, that's who the other owners in Florida were like, book that guy, book that guy. And I kept telling them, if you do this, then you're going to end up alienating your core audience, charging them more, and you're going to close, you know? So what they do, they start booking Kyoki. They booked Tiesto, you know, a bunch of other stuff. And it just wasn't what was the fit. It wasn't that night. Because that night was about, like I said, Advent. We had Goldie, you know, Goldie came in and played a set. It was just every and anybody you could think of was there, you know, DJ Funk. So you go from DJ Funk to Tiesto, it's not the same crowd, you know what I mean? And I just warned them. And then once they started to book that way and I had less say in who was coming, I just quit. I was like, I'm done. I said, I guarantee you within a year, you'll be closed. And sure as fuck, they were closed. You know, sad.
What do you think, having a weekly residency, I don't know how many years you actually had that, but what do you think is the greatest skill that you acquired from playing weekly to more or less the same audience? And you were playing open to close, right? You were playing.
What I did is, it started out where we were supposed to have 1 guest a month, right? And the owners got kind of full of themselves and greedy. So they put it to the point where we were doing guests like every weekend. And I had to demand, look, I need 1 weekend a month where I play from start to finish. So I was playing 5-6 hour set only once a month, as opposed to 3 times a month, you know, twice a month. But for me, the biggest attribute, the biggest thing was building. Because when they first started the night, the club itself was not an underground club. It was a cigar martini bar. Remember when cigars and martinis and everybody was watching, what was that shit? Swingers?
Yeah.
That movie? And everybody thought they were wearing the bowling shirts and all that shit. That's what it was.
Hipster.
Yes. When the real hipster first started, it was that shit. It was a humidor with cigars. It was a martini bar in the back. It was corny and cheesy as fuck. And they asked me to come and play on the recommendation from Derek May, I think. And he was like, you better get Bone in there before he starts traveling too much, you know. And I went and met with the guy, and they were like, will you come and do this? I was like, nope. No, your club is not the fit for me. So they asked me again. I said no. Finally asked me again. And in my mind, the best way to say no politely was to ask for something that was outrageous, and they would have to decline. So I asked for an outrageous amount of money, because in that time, DJs in Detroit would get, I'm not even joking, between 50 and 75 bucks as a resident. And as a guest living in the city, they will offer you 150 bucks. So I asked for 700. And to have a say in the people who came as guests, and to have 1 night a month where I play the whole night. And then he said, sold, done. And I was just like, oh shit. So now we got to do it. So I had to go in there on a Friday night, because in Detroit, there's no one club that's busy every night. Saturday night you go here, Friday night you go there. You know, it's like different place. So Friday nights were empty at the place, but they had a following because they played cheesy commercial dance music. So they had like maybe 200 or 300 people. The place could hold 800. So I come in, and the first week, I kicked everybody out. I started playing what I play, and they almost all of them left. The next week, the owner's like freaking out. Next week, it's like 50 people, and he's freaking out. And I'm like, give me 2 weeks. So the week after that, 300. And he was just like, what's going on? I said, this is how you build this. You build a night, just like a house, just like anything else, like a cake or whatever.
First, you have to break it down, though. You have to break it down, and then you could build it back up in your own way.
With a strong foundation, and that's your core. So after the third week, I think it was, we hit 750, and we never looked back. It was packed every night. We ended up with a radio broadcast, like live from the club. The thing that was sad is no black station from the city of Detroit wanted to carry it, because it was techno, and techno had gone out of style for the radio at that time. It was all pre-programmed hip hop, whatever. So they found an alternative radio station in Windsor, which, is 5 minutes across the border in Canada. It's called 89X. And they'll play all the alternative stuff, Nine Inch Nails and Front 242. And they said, yeah, we'll do it. So now the owners are excited. They come back to me and they're like, yeah, they approved it. We're going to do a deal. And I said, okay, so no commercials. And they're like, what? We have to have commercials. How are we going to pay for it? And I said, well, you can't have a DJ set and just have it interrupted every, 20 minutes. That's stupid. So they're like, man, what the fuck? So they went back and actually did it like 2-hour block, commercial free. So now the way I see it is I built this thing up, and I have this core, and I have this crowd and this club. So any guest, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Carl Cox. I don't care if you're Dave Angel. You got to come in and you got to be at peak, because now it's Bones' house and it's Detroit, and you have to prove yourself. Because people in Detroit will stand in the front like this and just stare at you unless you rock that shit, So I think building something like that was necessary, and it was a proving ground. Because now, since it's closed and everything's falling apart, anybody can go there, and whatever they've seen online is their reputation. Oh, they're famous? Yeah, we like it. Okay, we're going to go, and we're going to do this in the front. Where is he? Oh, he's over there. Yeah, we're going to do this. Just like the guys I said earlier in front of Dennis Solta, and it wasn't his record. They blindly just did that. Yeah. So at the moment, at that time, it was a valuable asset to the city, and I thought for sure that after Motor closed, there would be something else. There really hasn't been anything on that level since Motor closed, that consistent level, every week, and it was great. I mean, there were times where the place can hold 800. I remember nights where there were 1,100 people in that place. It was just ridiculously packed. And I think any good club has to have a foundation with a resident that builds, and it has to be something where if you bring in a guest, the guest has to actually add to what you already have. Yeah. That's the key.
Do you think DJs today, do you think they pander too much to the audience? Do you think they're too worried about maintaining the status quo or their stature wherever they are in their career to take the kind of chances that we all took?
I honestly think, I hate to
they play it safe. Is everyone playing it safe? Like, when's the last time you were listening to a DJ? You said you like going out and checking other DJs, whether you're next to them in the DJ booth or on the dance floor, where you're like, I can't fucking believe this guy or this girl is playing this song or this music. Oh. And your mind is blown. I mean, how often is that happening these days compared to when you were starting out?
Sadly, it's not happening that often at all. Yeah. I mean, it happens every once in a while. And I think what it is, they are placating. They're definitely going through the motions. A majority of the DJs are, because they're afraid. They've been built up and they're idolized. And to play it safe keeps that in place. But the moment you take chances, you might lose that. Yeah. And I think they're deathly afraid because there's so much money on the table. There's so much press that as much as they put you on the cover to build you up, they'll do the same shit to tear you down.
Yeah.
You know, they'll take the same photo. The same photographer will photograph you when you're falling down. You know,
Playing
they're
it
not your
safe
friend.
means you're playing
Especially in the
tracks that
UK.
you fully know before you're playing them, right?
Well, I think playing safe means you stay in. You have a lane. You know, people sometimes they say stay in your lane. You know,
Yeah.
the lane can be broad or it can be really narrow. I think what happens is people make their lane so narrow that it's so safe. It's almost like bowling when you put the bumper rails up. The ball can never go in the gutter. You can't fail. You know what I mean?
I think
So
that's a
if
very good
everything is-
analogy.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
a lot of DJs don't, a lot of new DJs don't even have or never had residencies as well, where they've had to play open to close in the same club every week. You know, it's like they bypass that. You know, that's the thing. It's a completely different playing ground.
We're gonna have to start saying that from now on. Put your bumpers down, homeboy.
Put the bumpers down, bro.
You got your bumpers up, man.
Put them motherfuckers. Because everybody here has paid dues one way or another. You've been in situations, you've done the long sets, you've had nights where there's nobody there, but you still have to play.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You've done you've paid the dues, you know, and a lot of people just
I feel sorry for those who haven't.
But does that matter? But does that matter anymore these days? Like,
no.
Does that matter about
I
paying?
think
No, but it's a missing experience.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, yeah,
it matters to me. I mean, it matters.
Right.
It matters.
Yeah. But not to the people who haven't paid the dues. They don't care.
Yeah, like people coming up nowadays or younger DJs that are just starting out, like there's no, I don't think like residencies really exist in most clubs.
Yeah, maybe as far as even if it's beyond a residency, it's doing your homework, knowing the people, you know, who came before you, the tracks, the stories, you know, practicing. Put it this way, when I was younger, that's another thing that I think helped me was not just my basketball acumen, but I used to DJ like 6 hours at a time at home in my dad's basement. And I would practice. Like I said before, even like when I lived in the loft and my cousin would bump the table and Neil would skip, I had to figure out a creative way to get out of it. I was practicing, you know? So when I go into a club or a festival or whatever, I'm borderline fearless. Because I already know, first of all, I'm 2 tracks ahead because I'm the one in control. So even if the crowd doesn't know it yet, I know they're about to go wild 2 tracks from now. That's my job, you know. But also being fearless enough to know that no matter what happens up there, I can handle the situation. Imagine if some of these DJs now, not saying they need to play vinyl, but what if they had to play on vinyl and there's a margin of error where the needle could skip or something could go wrong? What would they do? You know, what would they do? You know, if something went wrong during their set, would they know how to handle it? Would they be able to, you know, finesse their way? Or would they just stand there and put their hands up and thank you. I already got paid. I'm out. Technical difficulties. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The dudes, they build up some calluses. They give you that.
I think they give you a deeper experience.
Like they make you appreciate every moment, like you said.
Yeah,
like when David, you do that house party or something.
David, the younger DJs probably don't value that the way we value it, and they're able to, you know, do what they do and give everybody an experience. But you know, when I'm really affected deeply by a DJ, it's usually 99.9% of the time. It's not a new DJ. It's a DJ that's been around and understands how to deliver, you know, the classics with the new, you know, stuff that's being released in a way that tells a story somehow. And that for me is that deeper experience that unfortunately I think the younger audiences and the younger DJs don't value.
Yeah, I think this could be attributed to so many aspects of life, though. It's not only music. I mean, it seems like just with the availability of technology, the way information is passed around people, we're breeding an entire generation of young people who are constantly looking for shortcuts in every aspect of their life, not only music, but certainly it does apply to music as well. It's a crazy world out there, and things are changing fast.
Yeah.
Do you think producers make better DJs?
In my opinion, they do. Just because the depth of knowledge of the sonic, the sonic realm that they're in, they will be able to tweak a song. Like for me, someone had a really good post. Someone was saying that MP3 should never be played in a club and all this or something like that. This one guy was like,
"Don't get Francois Kevorkian started on that."
Okay.
Yeah.
And one guy just stepped into the chat or into the thread, and he was like, "Look, I'm just going to tell you about my personal experience. I heard Bone play in London. What's that big party in London? I forgot. It's in a big hall. I can't remember what it's called.
Tobacco? No, not Tobacco.
Printworks.
Printworks.
Yeah. He was like, I heard Bone play Printworks, and I know for a fact he was playing waves and MP3s and all this, but the way, because he was back there watching, and he's like, he EQ'd and used the gain and everything because he knew exactly which tracks needed to be tweaked, where the bass wasn't heavy enough, you turn up the bass. And a lot of DJs now, they just have that gain. It never moves. It never moves because they think everything is the same sonically. Or maybe they level all their songs before they play. But there's some things you just can't fix. You have to play it and fix it when you're mixing it.
Let me ask that the other way around. Isn't it that every DJ at some point really wants to be a producer as well? Like if you're really into DJing, you want to at some point play more of the stuff that you're feeling you want to create, and in the end you have to create it yourself.
I think so.
I don't agree with that. I know a lot of DJs who have no interest in producing, but I do know a lot of DJs. I do know a lot of DJs who feel like if they don't get into producing, that their careers will never advance to some other level beyond just being a bedroom DJ. Because there's certainly a pressure these days that if you want to break out of your hometown and travel and get on the international DJ circuit on any level, that you need to be a producer, that you need to run a record label, that you need to contribute somewhat. And that pressure is what drives people to want to be a producer.
Or you could play vinyl at 150 BPM, and that's
I mean, I'd like to think that almost every DJ wants to be a producer and wants to make music. I've met some that have no interest in it whatsoever.
I believe that. Now that you say it, yeah. Look at how many people just are racing for a shortcut. They're like, oh, if I can just get to this level, they think it's like it's almost like a scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
Black t-shirt, play at the Berghain. Do this, do that, and then next thing you know, I'm gonna start.
I think we could definitely do a part 2 with you, but
being that we're 2 hours in, a little over 2 hours in, and before we let you go, I have to let you speak a bit about your Homeless Homies
my man
project, which is something I know is very close to your heart, and Anne as well. And when I met you guys, I don't know if we met before Movement 2019.
Yeah.
Maybe we did in passing, but I watched
it was in passing.
And like Mo says, it was really, really incredible to watch you in your element with the vinyl in what's that stage and movement called? We were talking about it with the
Real Detroit.
It was the underground.
The underground.
Yeah. And the sound in there is so thumping. And I was the side just watching you during your set, and then I came backstage and we had some words, and you told me about the project, and I said I'm in, and then you messaged me again. You guys messaged me, and I said I'm still in. I haven't changed my mind. Just let me know when to turn up.
The first one.
Yeah, well,
you said it immediately. You were like, "Hey, let me know. Let me know."
Yeah, well, I had a lot of respect for the fact that you believe so strongly in something so important. It was, a very selfless thing for you guys both to do, and I was really happy to be a part of it. And you ended up doing the event with a lot of notable names: Peggy Goo, Sims in Amsterdam, at Shelter.
Yeah.
That Shelter for you.
That Shelter.
So can you tell us all a little bit about how you came to get involved and create this project and how it's going and the impact that you guys have had on the community in Amsterdam?
Yeah. Well, what happened is when I started doing my residency at Shelter downtown in Detroit, I would I drive down, and I was lucky because I only had my first car when I was 19. Most people get it at 16, 17. But it was a really nice car because my dad worked at Mazda. He was a plant manager. So I had a really nice ride. And when I park it downtown, you always got to worry about somebody breaking your window or trying to steal your shit. So I remember the first time I came out to go in the shelter, this homeless guy comes up and he goes, "Hey, I'll watch your car. I'll watch your car. I got you. I got you. Just take care of me when you come out." And sure enough, when I came out, he was there and he's like, "See, nobody touch your shit." You know, it's like, damn. So the more I would go down there, the more I interact with the homeless people. And somebody might come up and say, "Hey, you know, you got any money? Can you give me some money?" And I'm like, "What do you need?" "Well, I'm hungry." I said, "Okay, let's go get some food, you know, because I don't know what you're going to do with the money." And it also got to the point where I would know, okay, he drinks, he's on drugs. You know, I started to know. So the main thing was, instead of just giving money and walking on, I would ask them their story. And I'm like, "If you don't mind me asking, how did you come to this point?"
Mm-hmm.
And they would explain it to me, and they were humble about it. They weren't offended. You know, I met a guy who just fell on hard times, and he had one arm. He calls himself Stubby Nubby, never forget. So I raised money to get him a prosthetic arm. You know, he was so thankful. He was just like, "Man, you know, now when I visit my son, I feel, you know, I feel complete." But it was about getting to know the homeless. So when I met Ann, she was the same way in LA. She had compassion, and she would try and do whatever she could for the homeless people there. Just little things, you know, it wasn't an organization. So she came up with the idea, and I just chimed in on, well, maybe we could do this and this and this. And that was it. Homeless Homies was formed.
Mm-hmm.
And what we did is we said, okay, whenever we're in Detroit or LA, we're going to make sure that we can feed people, give them clothes, coats, socks, whatever they need. And we would seriously go around to the places where we knew homeless people were, and we would ask them, "What do you need?" And they would say, every response was the same. "No one's ever asked me that. They just give me something, or they throw something at me, you know, not that it's bad or disrespectful, but they never ask, what specifically do I need?" You know, one guy had huge feet, so he needed extra large shoes. You know, everybody was different. Some guy was like, "I just need a shave. I just need a good shave," you know? So from that point, we started to think, well, what else can we do? So we decided that all the proceeds from Subject Detroit, from my label, since the industry kind of flipped on its head. Remember, everybody was selling records, you were making money. Then all of a sudden the gigs became the money, and the records were, you know, minimal, secondary. So I just decided, and we decided, all the money from my label goes to Homeless Homies.
Mm-hmm.
So every vinyl, every download, everything, we just put it in the Homeless Homies bank account until we can figure out something we can do to help on a major scale. So we started to do small things, like on Thanksgiving, people usually go to the homeless shelter and dish out food. We noticed that people would have to wait outside the homeless shelter like 3 hours before it opened because they want to get a spot. So we go to White Castle, it's a burger joint, and get these sliders, these small little burgers. You can get them by like a briefcase, they call it a crave case. And we get those and bring them to the people in line while they're waiting. They're like, "Oh, it's the White Castle man," you know. So now I know them, they know me. And I had known a lot of these people since like high school, just talking to them. You see them on the street and people just dismiss them as crazy or whatever. I would interact, you know. So as it got older, when I brought On to Detroit for the first time, I'll never forget, we were driving and there's this guy walking on the street and he's just talking to himself and acting crazy. And I pull up and I beep the horn and I go, "Hey." And he looked at me and he just goes, and he straightened up. I was like, "What was that?" So he does that because he thinks that people will leave him alone. I said, but I told him if he keeps doing that, he's going to actually drive himself crazy. So we were at Submerge. We were going to Submerge. And I went in, and An was outside, and he pulls up. He walks up, and he goes, "You with Bone?" She goes, "Yeah." He was like, "He's a good man. He's a good man." And he just walks away. So that moment, she was like, "What is going on?" So we just advanced to the point where we said, okay, maybe we can do an event and all the proceeds can go to homeless shelter. Because we would always donate and, try and gather goods. We get a list from the homeless shelter. What do you need? And we would get these things and donate it. So we decided to do the homeless homies in Detroit for the first time at the shop, right? The Well Done Good. So we went, did that, and it was so nice that, Seth and Derek and had offered Josh Wink, they said, okay, we'll donate our sets. And it was a huge success. And that was the day after we went to the festival. And you were like, how did it go? And then we told you, and you said, look, next time I'm down. And you was it your manager who was there or your agent was with you? And you told him, give me my number, give me your number. Because next time when they call, I'm going to go do it. So we decided to do one in Amsterdam. And it was a big undertaking, because it was you, Peggy Goo, Ben Sims, who else do we have? Detron, Spencer Parker, Carista. It was huge. So to be able to do that, and you guys all donated your time for that, was mind-blowing. It was mind-blowing. You raised so much money. We were able to buy new beds, all new beds for one homeless shelter.
Wow.
Another one, we gave them enough money to run their art program, the Rainbow Soul Club, for 2 years, basically. 2 years. They were like, we hope this is enough, to get to. And they were like, this is enough for 2 years. Wow. Yeah. So it just kind of fuels us to want to do more and more and more. So last year during Thanksgiving and Christmas in 2019, we were going to come back to the States, and we thought, well, if we stay in Amsterdam, what could we do to help the homeless? So I came up with this idea. We actually had a Christmas Eve dinner where we went to a restaurant, reserved it, had a big dinner for everyone at the shelter. Then we had already talked to a hotel and booked rooms for everybody for 2 nights to stay in a hotel so they could have a good night's sleep, hot meals, take a good shower, do whatever you want, watch TV, So 2 nights, and we would meet up for breakfast and we would meet up for dinner. And Anna and I stayed in the hotel too, just so that we'd be there with them, And it was the coolest thing, So I think our goal, originally we were trying to open a shelter in Detroit, and we were trying to purchase this land. And once they found out what it was for, we got bullied out of it. But here in Amsterdam, the people who run the shelters here actually said they would help us open another shelter. So that's the goal here, is to open a sleep shelter. Because that's the biggest issue, is people don't have a place to sleep. They can go get a meal, and they can actually go and wash their clothes and, get new stuff. So that's it. I mean, that's Homeless Homies. I feel like I'm blessed enough. I don't have to be rich. I'm comfortable. I'm more than comfortable. Both of us are. So to be able to do something that makes me feel good and helps people and makes it every gig worthwhile. So as much as I could try and complain about something, I can't. Because now it's not for me, it's not for my wife, it's not for our daughters, it's for our homies. So I don't want to let them down. So I got to suck it up. The rider's not perfect. Fuck it. This isn't the best hotel. What are you going to do? I always think about, what would my homies do? They'd be so grateful, for anything, So that's it. We try our best, man. We're going to keep going. It's been tough, but they've been resilient during COVID. Mm-hmm. They send us, it's so funny. They send us postcards. They give us, I have a bunch of paintings from the art club that they did for us. one of our friends, we have people who actually like message us and they're like, I'm going out of town. This was before COVID hit. And they were like, I'm going out of town on holiday for a month, you know, and my place is going to be empty. I was wondering if maybe one of your homeless homies would want to stay there. Shit like that. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think
Much
in many
love,
ways
man.
these days, the pandemic has compounded the homeless problem. I remember I was in Jacksonville last weekend, and I was going from the airport to the hotel, and we drove by, like, I think just a recreation center, and I couldn't believe how many tents I saw.
Oh.
And it was like I was driving by like the favelas in Brazil or the,
or Skid Row in LA.
Skid Row or LA or certain spots in South Africa and stuff. It was shocking. And so that's why I wanted to also bring it up, because what's happening with the homeless, I'm sure, during this pandemic has been, like, you're unprepared to deal with something like that, to be able to, make as much of an impact as you want to make.
Yeah.
So it's been difficult. So
Much respect, man. It's amazing to see artists and DJs and people like yourself give back to the community, man.
Especially underground.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
that's seriously legit. I mean, I've been a big purveyor about that myself. Like, just trying to give back in any way that you could, because we're so privileged in so many different ways, man.
I know, right? I mean, we're, as much as I'll admit, I'm the first one to complain about some shit. I'm like, this is not the right flavor Ciroc, but it depends. It all depends on what standard you're holding people to. If it's an independent promoter who's, spending his own money and this and that, or her own money, then, you're lean. But if it's a big company that does this every week with the biggest names possible, and they get the majority of shit wrong, you're like, okay, come on now. Now you're really fucking with me, right? But I'm just happy. I'm happy that we can do it. We're both really happy. And I got a text. It's so funny. So Ann just texted me, and she says, ask Liebing to play the next one.
There you go.
What?
I want you to play the next charity fundraiser for our homeless homies.
I'll be there.
Oh, that's it. See?
Absolutely.
You know what's so funny is after I spoke to you, Ali, I went to see, I went over to the stage to go see you. Wait, you were on Richie's stage, right?
Probably.
For Movement was
I
Chris?
can't remember. Yeah.
Chris, were you at Movement?
Yes. The last
I was on Richie's stage. Yeah, the same stage.
Okay. You both were on Richie's stage.
Yeah,
I think I was going to try and, because I had talked to Ali and I was going to try and say hello to Chris, and it was so packed that I couldn't even get up on the stage. But then Richie came down and he was like, hey, what's up? And then the first thing he did, how did it go yesterday? He was like, anything you need, next time you do an event, I'm there. I want to be there. Because he was meant to be at the one at Shelter. But we had a wealth of riches. We had too many people. We had too many. We had to cut back. We were going to have Juan and Richie. Yeah. And we didn't have room. Because, every set, there's like an hour set and all that. So even Richie was on board. Like, yeah, if you, whatever you need, I want to do the next one.
Eric,
I'm
cool. Honored to do this, to do so. Anytime.
That's so cool. Thank you.
It's important work that you're doing. And yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Don't think you're not going to be there too, Truncate.
As long as you're there,
you were planning on doing one, weren't you planning on doing one in LA like a while back, just before the pandemic, I think, right?
Just before the pandemic, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I think LA
we got a crew in LA.
Yeah. Man,
we can hold it down, man. We can hold it down.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Always.
Cool.
Eric, we scratch only the surface, so you're gonna have to come back at some point, and we're gonna dive into
we even haven't talked about how you moved from Detroit to Amsterdam.
Yeah. That's one of my biggest blessings, is because who would have ever thought, that not only could I move to Amsterdam, but I could move to Amsterdam and still have houses in the US, you know?
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm no Moody man. He's got a ton of properties, you know, in the city. He's got a ton of houses. The other lady, he's got a ton. I'm like, didn't I see you over? He's like, yeah, I just bought that house. Damn. But then I told him about the one in Amsterdam. He's like, how much is that one? I told him, he's like, oh, damn, you balling. He's like, I ain't balling like that. But yeah, so LA, Detroit, Louisville, and Amsterdam. But
oh wow, nice.
Yeah, I mean,
you feel at home in Amsterdam, right?
We
now.
do.
Like that.
We do. It's kind of the perfect fit for us right now, you know.
And how are things, you know, amidst this pandemic that we're all in, coping with it in different ways? How are things in Amsterdam?
It's weird. It's almost like they're in denial. Like everybody knows.
Like people in Miami and Dubai and Tulum? Or a different kind of denial?
Because they'll say, they're like, oh yeah, you know, COVID. But then, like, we have this it's almost like a lake in front of the house, right? It's a canal, but it's like a lake. It's not low. It's kind of high up. And they closed both ends of it. And it got really cold here and it froze over.
Yeah.
Everybody, I woke up and I heard all this noise. Look out the window, there's like 50, 60 people ice skating and playing on the ice in front.
I saw a lot of videos of people ice skating on the canal.
Like there's no COVID. I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. I was mad about the noise waking up, but then I looked out and I was like, what are you guys doing? You know,
I saw a video of some guy falling through.
Oh yeah, you see that? So the police had to come and like give out citations and tickets and fines, and I mean it's
COVID fatigue, man. People are over it.
Yeah, they've been over it though.
Yeah.
And then the government thinks they have their finger on the pulse, but they don't. Like they're shutting down the clubs, but the spread was coming from all these university students having parties in their dorm rooms.
Yeah.
You know, 30 people deep with cases of beer. And here you got Radion across it's sad because you can see the juxtaposition because Radion is right across from like where the university, a lot of uni students stay. Yeah. So it's closed, but then you see all these students packed into all these rooms across. And you're like, fuck, that's the spread right there.
And what was your last show before everything shut down? Do you remember?
It was here. It was I played Fabric before COVID hit the restrictions, but then I started doing the further nights at Radion, and I was scheduled to do the next one was going to be a continuation of Chicago House, and that's when they shut everything down. Yeah, but we'll come back. We were going to have a massive, even during the restrictions, we had planned a big Halloween event. And it was going to be so dope. Well, Halloween, but it was for ADE. And it was, we had Stingray coming. We had Ben Sims coming. We had AK, Anastasia Christensen coming. And it was going to be a multi-room event. It's going to be three rooms. And basically, we were going to get 3 or 4 different groups of people because it was limited to like 60 people, maybe even less at the time, 30. And they would come in the first room, the DJ plays, and then they would go to the next room. And then while they go, then the next group comes in and they would rotate until they rotate out. And we're going to do 3 or 4 different groups. So everybody gets to experience every DJ once. And we're going to do it for 3 nights.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we had it planned. We had a big thing planned. We had something with Goldie planned, but it's okay. You know, we'll be able to figure something out.
Yeah.
Yeah, just Goldie.
And and one last thing before we let you go, as everyone knows, Daft Punk split up over the last week. We all most of us, I think, saw the epilogue video. Did you ever book Daft Punk and Motor or Shelter, or had any run-ins with Thomas and?
You know, the funny thing, I don't know the perception of me to them or them to me. All I know is I used to play Tracks on the Rocks, the Thomas Bang Alter releases, right? I would hammer them at Motor. So one of my first trips to Europe, Laurent Garnier brought me over to play at the Rex Club. He heard me play in Detroit. He came back, played a gig with me. Then he said, I'm going to bring you to Paris. And I was like, yeah. And then 3 months later, bam. So I'm headlining the Rex. First time outside of the US and the UK. I played small events in the UK once before, but this was the Rex. So I'm there. There's a line down the street. I don't know any of this. It's all new to me. The DJ booth is enclosed. It's air conditioned. Everything works. And it's not like Detroit at all, you know. People are pointing out, that's Jeff Mills' manager right there. You know, that's Frederic, blah, blah, blah. That's such and such. Then these models come up and they're like, I did an interview on the radio earlier that day. Laurent had it just laid out for me. Interview, dinner, you know, club. And they're like, we love what you were talking about on the radio. Because they come into the booth and he sees these models and he was like, he was DJing at the time. He goes, oh, and he starts walking over and the security goes, no, they want to talk to Bone. He was like, you bastard. So I talked to them and they're like, we really appreciate what you were saying. And next thing you know, then somebody comes and says, that's Thomas Bangalter from Daft Punk. He's here. And they're just like there up on the wall chilling and like, so there's a who's who in this house of everybody. Manu La Milan and all these people. So I thought since Thomas came to see me, you know, cool, that's cool. So I was doing a mix CD and I wanted to use one of his songs from Tracks on the Rocks. And my people messaged, you know, the people doing the CD for me were messaging. And then he sent back a thing saying he doesn't license his tracks to anyone. But when you're back in Paris, he'd love to go for dinner. I go, so I messaged back personally and I said, I don't want dinner. I want the fucking track. And I was so angry because, you know, I was young Bone. It was my first, it was like 96 or something. Or I don't know.
It was all about getting the license cleared back in the day.
Yeah.
I was so upset. You know what I did? I took the record and I put it in a sleeve in the thing and I mailed it. And I said, if I can't license it, then I shouldn't be playing it because I was playing it every weekend at Motor, hammering it. Wow. I sent it back to his people. Wow. I was like, here you go. I'm not gonna play it then. But that's what I think. Though. Definitely.
Sorry.
Still love Thomas Bangalter though.
That's incredible. Well, man, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me here. This was really cool.
Yeah, Eric, so good to talk to you. So many
good to see you,
amazingly wisdom insights.
You guys, this is dope. Yeah, I want to come back for sure. For sure.
Absolutely. We need to
say hi to Adam and stay safe and
you guys as well.
You sooner rather than later.
And by the way, everybody's watching when we talk about Daft Punk. Daft Punk said Joey Beltram was a huge influence on Daft Punk. So Joey Beltram was our guest last week. You can, everybody who's watching, you can still watch that show as much as any other shows on our DJs and Beer YouTube channel.
Yeah, and the audio podcast is coming. We're working on that very soon now.
We're working on an audio podcast, so
shit,
things are happening here.
That way, people don't have to look at us, and they
hear us.
And I see Ezra is playing at the modular. Ezra, hey.
He's making beats. He ran out.
Oh, and he's running away.
Cool. You scared her.
Did I scare him?
Yeah. He can't hear you because I'm in headphones anyways. I think somebody rang the doorbell, so he ran off to go get it.
Oh, man. Well, all right, guys. I'll see you.
It's been a pleasure. Cheers, man.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.
All right.
Ciao. Bye, everyone.
Peace.